Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this What If story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by chainsawjango on Wattpad. Now let's start. In this society, approximately 80% of the Earth's population possesses abilities known as quirks. It all began long ago in Qingqing City, China, when a radiant baby was born with the remarkable power. As time passed, similar occurrences emerged worldwide, leading to the majority of people acquiring superhuman abilities referred to as quirks. This phenomenon allowed many to pursue heroism as a profession, while others exploited their quirks for nefarious purposes, prompting the government to enlist heroes to safeguard civilians. Our story unfolds in 𝐒𝐮𝐬, Japan, where a young boy is fleeing the city and venturing into the woods. He is somewhat shorter than his peers, with a round face framed by a short, fluffy mop of dark green hair that curls at odd angles, casting shadows around him. His large, circular eyes mirror the same shade of green as his hair, often appearing watery and wide, giving him an innocent, energetic look. 4 symmetrical freckles adorn his cheeks in a diamond formation. Despite visible bruises and burns on his arms, he continues deeper into the woods until he drops to his knees. This boy is Izuku Yagi. Izuku reflects on his situation, feeling the weight of how others treat him. He wonders if it is wrong to dream of becoming a hero, even without a quirk. As he gazes at his injured arms, tears well up as painful memories of torment from others and neglect from his parents and twin sister flood his mind. 12 years ago, when he was 4 years old, Izuku and his sister were at 𝐒𝐮𝐬 Hospital, filled with excitement about their upcoming quirk assessment. Izuku, with his round face beaming, expressed his hopes of having a cool quirk. His sister, Izumi, joined in, eagerly anticipating her own extraordinary ability. The twins shared striking emerald eyes, their cheeks adorned with freckles that resembled a delicate constellation. Their mother, Inko Yagi, radiated warmth and comfort, her gentle demeanor putting everyone at ease. She reassured them, gently stroking Izuku's unruly hair as they awaited the doctor's return with the results of the assessment. Izuku fidgeted restlessly, his mind racing with possibilities about the powers that might soon manifest within him. Izumi leaned forward, her determination shining through her sparkling gaze, barely able to contain her excitement. When the door creaked open, the twins turned their heads in unison, their eyes widening as the doctor entered. He was an elderly man with a kind demeanor, his soft features exuding warmth despite the signs of age. His balding head shone under the fluorescent lights, and a meticulously trimmed mustache twitched as he smiled. The white lab coat he wore bore signs of years of dedicated service, and peculiar goggles hung from his neck, hinting at his inventive mind. His name tag read Dr. Tsubasa. As he approached the family, his calm authority eased the twins' anxiety. Dr. Tsubasa began to share the results of the assessment, his voice soft and measured. Inko's heart raced as she instinctively squeezed her children's hands, while Izuku and Izumi leaned forward, their eyes wide with anticipation. Dr. Tsubasa delivered the good news first, announcing that Izumi had manifested an extraordinary quirk, the ability to attract objects with her mind. Izumi's eyes widened in surprise and delight, her joy evident as she processed the incredible news. Inko beamed with pride, her eyes glistening with tears of happiness. However, the atmosphere shifted as Dr. Tsubasa turned his attention to Izuku. He felt a heaviness in his heart, knowing he had to deliver difficult news. He gently informed Izuku that he was quirkless. The weight of those words hung heavily in the air, crushing Izuku's dreams beneath their oppressive force. His once bright eyes dimmed as the reality of the situation sank in. Izuku's mind raced, desperately hoping for a mistake. He struggled to find his voice, but silence enveloped him. Beside him, Izumi's smile faltered, confusion clouding her expression as she tried to comprehend the implications of her brother's lack of a quirk. Inko stifled a gasp, her heart aching for her son. Dr. Tsubasa's expression reflected compassion as he addressed Izuku, acknowledging the difficulty of the news. He reassured the boy that being quirkless did not mean his life was over. There were still many paths he could pursue and ways to contribute to society. Inside, Izuku felt as if his dreams had shattered, leaving him adrift in uncertainty. Tears threatened to spill, but he fought to maintain his composure, gritting his teeth and striving to keep his expression neutral. Izuku longed to be a hero, and he finally managed to express his feelings, his voice trembling under the weight of his shattered dreams. Tsubasa, feeling the boy's heartache, gently patted Izuku's shoulder. The doctor reassured him, acknowledging his youth and the vast opportunities life offered beyond heroism. There were many paths where he could make a difference. 𝐼𝐼𝐬 expressed her gratitude to the doctor, her eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and resignation. Her smile was small and tight-lipped, never quite reaching her eyes, revealing the turmoil within her. Izuku's shoulders drooped, his gaze fixed on the floor as a single tear traced down his freckled cheek. His dreams of soaring through the skies and saving lives with incredible powers crumbled around him like shattered glass. Izumi looked from her brother to their mother, her brows furrowed in confusion. Concern laced her voice as she wondered about Izuku's future without a quirk. 𝐼𝐼𝐬's heart ached at the disappointment etched across her son's face. She reached out, gently ruffling his green locks in a comforting gesture. She explained that not everyone received a quirk, but that did not diminish his uniqueness or potential for greatness. Izuku clenched his fists at his sides, fighting back tears as he expressed his longing to be a hero like All Might. 𝐼𝐼𝐬 embraced him warmly, her heart breaking for her son whose dreams felt shattered. She reassured him, acknowledging his aspirations with a tender kiss on the top of his head. Izumi chimed in, reminding her brother that there were many ways to be a hero, quirk or not, emphasizing his kind heart and brave spirit as the most important traits of a true hero. Izuku thanked his sister, his voice cracking as tears streamed down his cheeks. 𝐼𝐼𝐬 gathered her children close and turned to the doctor with a determined nod, stating they were ready to go home. Upon arriving home, 𝐼𝐼𝐬 sat the twins down to explain what the hospital had revealed to their father, Toshinori. He was a tall, thin man with a kind face, his eyes crinkling at the edges when he smiled. He listened intently as 𝐼𝐼𝐬 recounted the doctor's assessment, beaming with pride upon learning about Izumi's telekinetic abilities. He playfully ruffled the young girl's curly green locks, expressing his belief that with training, she would become an incredible hero one day. Izumi glowed under her father's praise, but when Toshinori's gaze shifted to Izuku, his smile faltered, not quite reaching his eyes. Izuku sensed the feigned cheer behind it, the undercurrent of pity that made his heart sink further. Being quirkless hit him hard in a society that valued powers above all. He recalled how, in preschool, the other children had marveled at Izumi's abilities, their eyes shining with admiration. But that changed when word spread that he was quirkless. Suddenly, he became the outcast, the target of ridicule and cruel whispers. Despite the support from his parents and their friends, particularly his mother's unwavering love, the situation gradually shifted. Izumi's extraordinary talent captivated even their parents, who began to focus more on nurturing her abilities. Initially, it was small things, extra training sessions and special outings. However, as time passed, the emphasis on Izumi's progress grew stronger. Family dinners revolved around her potential and bright future as a hero in training, while Izuku felt increasingly invisible, pushing food around his plate. His parents' faces lit up with pride whenever Izumi showcased her telekinesis, but when their attention turned to him, their expressions dimmed. His mother, once his champion, seemed to have less time for him, her focus shifting to Izumi's training and the prospect of prestigious hero academies. He occasionally caught her looking at him with a mix of pity and disappointment, quickly masked when she realized he noticed. It wasn't intentional neglect, but rather a byproduct of their overwhelming pride and ambition for Izumi's success. Izuku became an afterthought, a shadow fading into obscurity as the spotlight shone brightly on his sister's abilities. The warmth of hugs turned perfunctory, and proud smiles were reserved for Izumi's achievements. He felt as though he was drowning in a sea of indifference, unnoticed by those around him. His days blurred into a routine of waking early, preparing for school, and enduring the isolation that came with being quirkless. While Izumi flourished in her abilities and gained the admiration of her classmates, Izuku faced indifference and, at times, disdain. Whispers in the hallways, pointing fingers, and mocking laughter became a constant backdrop to his school life. On particularly bad days, Izumi's friends would gather around her as she demonstrated her telekinetic powers, effortlessly levitating objects with a flick of her wrist. Meanwhile, Izuku lay crumpled on the grass, feeling the weight of his struggles. His former friends, including Katsuki, Katsumi, Shoto, and Ochako, looked down at him with disdain, their powers crackling menacingly. Katsuki's contempt was palpable as he taunted Izuku, belittling him for being quirkless. The laughter of his peers echoed around him, each sound a painful reminder of his isolation. Struggling to rise, Izuku felt the pressure of Katsuki's foot on his back, holding him down and intensifying the pain coursing through him. Katsuki's voice dripped with venom as he continued to mock him, leaving Izuku feeling more defeated than ever. Izuku Midoriya felt the weight of the world on his shoulders as he listened to the taunts of his classmates. They dismissed him as insignificant, a mere obstacle in their path to greatness. The voices of Shoto, Shoka, Izumi, and Ochako echoed in his mind, urging him to give up. As they turned away, he gazed up at the sky, feeling the sting of their words. He walked home, unnoticed by his family, and as the years passed, he faded into the background, forgotten even by those who should have cared. 12 years later, at 𝐼𝐸 Junior High, the classroom buzzed with the lively chatter of teenagers. The teacher entered, a stack of papers in hand, and cleared his throat to bring the room to silence. He announced that it was time for the students to start thinking about their futures. As he paced, he revealed career forms, knowing the students were eager to become heroes. With a flourish, he tossed the forms into the air, and they fluttered down like confetti, igniting cheers from most of the class. The excitement was palpable, with quirks activating in bursts of energy. One student's hair transformed into writhing snakes, another's skin shimmered like a disco ball, and yet another's fingers stretched like 𝗟𝗶𝗸 bands. However, 5 students remained silent, their indifference and arrogance setting them apart. The teacher's smile faltered as he noticed the divide. He acknowledged the talents of the students but reminded them that using their quirks in school was against the rules. Katsuki Bakugo, sitting with his feet on the desk, scoffed at the others, declaring that they should be grateful to be considered sidekicks. His arrogance sparked tension in the room, and when another student challenged him, Katsuki's eyes glinted with a dangerous amusement. The teacher, sensing the rising conflict, quickly redirected the conversation. He mentioned that Katsuki, along with Katsumi, the Todoroki twins, Izumi, and Ochako, were all aiming for UA High School. The attention shifted to the Todoroki twins, whose striking hair reflected their powerful lineage. Katsumi Bakugo leaned back confidently, her fierce appearance a testament to her training. Izumi, with her determined emerald eyes, had grown into a formidable young woman, shaped by years of rigorous training under All Might's guidance. The classroom buzzed with renewed excitement as students discussed their chances of acing the mock exam and securing recommendations for UA. The teacher's gaze fell on Izuku, who sat quietly at the back. His voice surprised everyone when he confirmed his aspiration to attend UA. The room fell silent, shock rippling through the students. Katsuki's face twisted with disbelief and anger, veins bulging as he struggled to contain his emotions. Izuku stood his ground, asserting that he was going to UA, regardless of what anyone thought. Katsuki's fury erupted as he confronted Izuku, demanding to know how he dared to challenge him. Izuku calmly reminded Katsuki that he was not in charge of his life. The classroom was left in stunned silence, witnessing a side of Izuku they had never seen before. As the day ended, Katsuki confronted Izuku again, grabbing him by the shirt and unleashing a torrent of insults, declaring him a nobody. Katsumi, Ochako, and Izumi joined in, urging him to give up. After Katsuki released him, he made a cruel remark about Izuku's longing for a quirk, leaving Izuku speechless as his former friends walked away. Feeling abandoned, Izuku returned home, where he overheard his family discussing their admiration for All Might. Their excitement only fueled his anger. he stormed to his room, overwhelmed by feelings of rage and betrayal. In a fit of frustration, he destroyed his belongings, realizing he had had enough. Gathering his clothes and the money he had earned from odd jobs, he prepared to take control of his destiny. As he quietly climbed out of the window, he closed it behind him and began to run away from the house and out of the city. In the present, Izuku stopped crying and stood up, noticing a light coming from a cave in the distance. He started walking toward the light. As he ventured deeper into the dark cave, he saw the light ahead and noticed a small body of shallow water. As he approached, he felt his feet grow cold and wet. Moving closer to the light, he discovered it was emanating from a giant ancient door. Izuku marveled at the size and age of the door. As he stepped closer, he noticed ancient text on the wall, but he couldn't decipher it. He wondered what language it was. Turning his attention back to the door, he pushed against it, and it began to open, releasing a cloud of dust that made him cough. He wondered what lay inside. As he stepped inside, his jaw dropped in awe at the sight before him. He looked around in disbelief and noticed a chest in the middle of the room. Curiosity drew him closer, and suddenly, the lights changed from red to blue. A deep voice echoed around him as he turned to see 6 spirits standing behind. The scene shifted as Izuku woke up and got dressed. He gathered his belongings and left the hotel, making his way to the docks to catch a boat to Honnoji City. As he walked through the city he had grown up in, he reflected on his decision to leave, glad to escape the painful memories. Upon arriving at the docks, he asked around until an old man agreed to take him to Honnoji City. After a brief journey, the boatmen announced their arrival. Izuku stepped off the boat and was struck by the breathtaking view of the city. The boatman remarked on the beauty of the place, explaining that elite students at Honnoji Academy could perform hero work within the city limits. He encouraged Izuku to prove himself. As Izuku walked away from the docks, he contemplated his next steps. He had a year to learn ki and enroll in Honnoji Academy. The elite students intrigued him, especially since they could work as heroes without licenses. He recalled reading a scroll the night before, which mentioned that unlocking ki required both mental and physical strength. He decided to keep this knowledge a secret. Remembering the mountains he had seen on the way, he thought they would be the perfect training ground. He recalled the coordinates of a temple where the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷Rs had trained and lived. However, unbeknownst to him, a camera hidden in a light post was tracking his movements. A teenager with teal hair and a distinctive collar-neck suit observed Izuku from afar, intrigued by the newcomer heading into the mountains. He wondered about Izuku's intentions. As Izuku approached the mountains, he found the entrance to a forest. He listened to the sounds of nature, the birds chirping, the wind blowing, and water flowing through a small creek. He felt a sense of peace and freedom, far removed from his past in 𝐼𝐻𝐻. While walking through the forest, he sensed he was being watched but dismissed it as paranoia. A bug-like drone landed on a nearby tree branch, keeping a watchful eye on him. As he continued his journey, the drone followed closely. The observer noted that there was nothing particularly special about the mountains, just caves and valleys, and wondered why Izuku was heading there. Suddenly, a small rock struck the drone, destroying it and causing the screen to go dark. The observer, puzzled, reviewed the footage to determine what had happened. In another location, a woman inquired if something was troubling the observer, who confirmed that it was. Meanwhile, Izuku had reached the mountains and spotted a set of stone stairs leading up. He wondered how the temple would look after all these years. As he climbed the steps, he paused to take in the breathtaking view. After a while, he stopped to rest, reaching into his bag for a bottle of water and some chips. After finishing his snack, Izuku began his journey back up the steps. After 3 hours of walking, he finally saw what he had been searching for. The temple where the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷Rs trained and grew together stood before him, looking as if it hadn't been used in years. Excited, he approached to see it up close. As he walked toward the entrance, he observed the bamboo and other plants that had overgrown the temple structure. Upon reaching the entrance, he took a deep breath and stepped inside, astonished by the age of everything around him. As he continued to explore, he discovered a walkway leading downstairs to another room. Izuku marveled at the incredible place, wondering how it had remained in such condition for so long and who was responsible. Suddenly, a voice interrupted his thoughts. An old man sat next to a giant statue, drinking from a large bottle. He had long white hair, a white beard, and a white bandana on his head. His muscular physique was adorned with two necklaces, one with beads and a bird, the other with beads and a turtle shell. Scars were visible all over his body. The old man acknowledged Izuku, asking if he had finally found the place. Izuku introduced himself, feeling a mix of curiosity and respect. The man, revealing himself as 𝐾𝐞𝐬, explained that he had trained the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 since they were children. Izuku, intrigued, asked how 𝐾𝐞𝐬 was still alive. 𝐾𝐞𝐬 explained that he was immortal due to a curse placed on him long ago when he fought in battles before dedicating his life to training the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴. He fondly recalled the days when he watched them fight against villains and other temple fighters. Izuku expressed his surprise at 𝐾𝐞𝐬's memories, and 𝐾𝐞𝐬 lamented how the rise of quirks had led to a decline in interest in the old ways. He shared his disappointment that the descendants of the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 no longer cared about their heritage, particularly the 𝐾𝐿 clan, who believed that ki should be kept within their own ranks. 𝐾𝐞𝐬 revealed that they had once attempted to steal sacred scrolls from the 𝐒𝐮𝐴𝐴, but those scrolls had been taken to their graves in a hidden temple. Izuku, realizing the importance of the scrolls in his backpack, wondered how 𝐾𝐞𝐬 knew about them. 𝐾𝐞𝐬 explained that after 275 years of life, he had learned many things. He then expressed his intention to train Izuku, believing he could show others that he was not the same person they once thought he was. After 30 minutes of preparation, 𝐾𝐞𝐬 began teaching Izuku the fundamentals of ki. He explained that ℇ ki required dedicated training and practice. While everyone possessed ki, some had a greater natural ability to control it. 𝐾𝐞𝐬 emphasized that regular people needed specific training, which Izuku was about to undergo. He noted that Izuku needed to build muscle and mental strength to control his ki effectively. 𝐾𝐞𝐬 handed Izuku some new clothes, which he changed into in another room. When he emerged wearing a green gi adorned with the temple symbol, he felt the weight of the garments. 𝐾𝐞𝐬 explained that they were weighted clothes designed to aid in muscle and strength training, weighing approximately 250 pounds. Determined to prove himself, Izuku prepared for the training ahead. 6 months passed, and under 𝐾𝐞𝐬's guidance, Izuku learned the basics of ki. He transformed from a skinny boy into a muscular young man with defined abs and strong arms. His training was rigorous, involving carrying boulders, jogging long distances, dodging ki attacks, and mastering martial arts, including American kickboxing and Shaolin Kung Fu. He even endured mental training by meditating inside a boiling volcano. After all the hard work, Izuku unlocked his ki, learning to fly, heal small wounds, and perform basic ki attacks. Now, he stood on a cliffside overlooking Honnoji City, feeling ready to showcase his capabilities. Suddenly, an explosion echoed in the distance, and Izuku noticed smoke rising from the city. He flew toward the source and discovered 2 gang members robbing a bank while clashing with 2 students from Honnoji Academy. One of the gang members, Xander Brimstone, a muscular young man with dark energy powers, boasted about their heist. He launched energy projectiles at one of the students, a strong young man named 𝐿𝐬𝐽, who remained unscathed. 𝐿𝐬𝐽, as the disciplinary committee chair of Honnoji Academy, declared his intent to protect the city and prepared to show his strength, transforming his uniform into a hero costume that resembled ancient Egyptian mummies. During the transformation, the uniform exhibited signs of electrical energy, resembling chains. 𝐿𝐬𝐽 declared the name of his uniform, the 3-star Goku uniform Shackle Regalia MK2, and issued a final warning to Xander to surrender, promising no mercy if he resisted. Xander, surrounded by photon energy, faced 𝐿𝐬𝐽 with a confident smirk, challenging him to strike. As Xander and 𝐿𝐬𝐽 exchanged blows, another student engaged with a gang member in a sword fight. This student, 𝐾𝐮𝐬𝐴, had mid-length dark green hair and gray eyes, wearing a 3-star Goku uniform modified into a long black coat with a gold high collar. The coat featured a built-in sword sheath and spikes on each shoulder, revealing a cadet blue vest underneath, complemented by white breaths and shoes, and a belt adorned with 3 metal spikes. 𝐾𝐮 recognized his opponent, teasing him about still using the same tricks. 𝐿𝐬𝐽, the gang member, responded with confidence, claiming he had new moves. His Goku uniform transformed into armor, primarily white with green details, and 6 spikes protruded from his abdomen as he turned his arm into a katana, announcing the 3-star Goku uniform blade 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐃 MK3. Meanwhile, Xander unleashed a powerful attack, sending 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬 flying a short distance. With a smirk, Xander taunted 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬, who acknowledged Xander's improvement but reminded him of his quirk's capabilities. 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬's fist glowed as he charged at Xander, delivering a punch that sent him flying toward 𝐾𝐮, both of them propelled out of the city. They humorously remarked about the 𝐒𝐵𝐽𝐬 gang blasting off again. Sangiyama commented on 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬's overzealousness, to which 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬 agreed, noting the minimal property damage and the importance of delivering the money to the bank manager. As they carried the bags back, Izuku observed the elite students of Honno City working diligently to maintain safety. At the temple, Inumuta, controlling a camera, expressed curiosity about a mysterious figure, Mr. Green, who did not appear to be a villain. Izuku reflected on the final month before the Honnoji Academy entrance exam, recalling the hard work and dedication he had put into training with Sensei Kite, who had become like a father to him. Preparing for one last spar before the exam, Izuku entered the training room, where he found Kite relaxing with a drink. After a respectful bow, Izuku confirmed his readiness, and their sparring match commenced. As they exchanged blows, Izuku executed a technique called Dragon-style Dragon Barrage Die, sending Kite back slightly. Kite regained his balance, took a sip from his drink, and then charged at Izuku, delivering a powerful punch that sent him crashing against the wall. Izuku quickly recovered, landing gracefully and smiling as Kite laughed, acknowledging Izuku's progress and readiness for the exam while emphasizing the importance of continued training. After their session, Izuku decided to head into the city, receiving a reminder from Kite to be cautious. He changed into casual clothes purchased with money from Kite and began his descent from the temple. Meanwhile, at Honnoji Academy, Inumuta inquired about the purpose of a gathering called by Satsuki, a tall girl with long dark blue hair and striking blue eyes. Satsuki explained they were discussing the upcoming entrance exam and the potential for new elite members. Ryuko, Satsuki's sister, expressed excitement about the day ahead, speculating on who might join their ranks. Nui, their younger sister, chimed in with playful thoughts about dating, prompting Ryuko to remind her of the importance of choosing the right partner. The sisters shared a moment of camaraderie as they prepared for the challenges ahead. Her eyes sparkled like sapphire blue, with highlights that seemed to form a cheerful expression. Nui wore an intricately designed pink Lolita-style dress, complemented by matching boots and fingerless gloves. She completed her look with a parasol, a large pink hair bow, and a purple eye patch that concealed the eye she lost in her battle against 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬. Her design featured a prominent heart motif evident on her collar, the center of her bow, her earrings, and even the highlights in her pigtails. Nui expressed her thoughts about wanting to find a charming companion, especially after the disappointment with Toji from the 𝐾𝐿 clan, who had only sought her quirks to create powerful offspring. Ryuko found it unnecessary to dwell on that unpleasant individual, while 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬 urged Nui to refrain from mentioning someone so unworthy of her elegance. A voice interrupted, playfully calling 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬 a protective giant guardian. It belonged to 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬, a petite girl with pink hair and sharp features. Unlike many others, she had a modest figure and was often seen wearing a skull-marked hat. 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬 proudly declared his role as the shield of Honnoji Academy, vowing to protect everyone as part of his duty. Nanon then inquired about Mako's whereabouts, just as the door swung open to reveal a young girl with brown eyes and a bowl-cut hairstyle. She wore the standard Honnoji Academy no-star uniform, consisting of a white short-sleeve shirt, a blue neckerchief, a blue miniskirt, and light brown loafers. Ryuko greeted Mako, who sheepishly admitted to oversleeping. 𝐼𝐼𝐽𝐬 questioned if Mako had been training again, to which she confirmed her commitment to getting stronger for their next sparring session. She also mentioned a green-haired boy that Inumuta had been observing. Suddenly, a bright light filled the doorway, and everyone recognized the presence of their mother figure. Ragio Kiryuin, the mayor of Honno City and principal of Honnoji Academy, entered with her striking multicolored hair, topped with silver. She exuded an attractive and authoritative aura, always dressed in glamorous attire, and bore 7 scars on her back resembling stars. Mako described the green-haired boy with freckles, noting that 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 had been watching him for some time without knowing his intentions. 𝗟𝐼𝐻𝐬 expressed curiosity and turned to 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 for more information. He explained that the boy had appeared about 10 months ago, heading into the mountains, and had been training 𝗟𝗶𝗸 on the beach. Mako recalled seeing him walking down the street, enjoying some matcha and assisting an elderly lady. Gamagori remarked on the boy's gentlemanly behavior, although he cautioned that it could be a facade. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 then displayed a camera feed showing the boy's image, prompting Nui to giggle and comment on his cuteness. 𝗟𝐻𝐬 advised her to calm down but acknowledged the boy's good looks, hinting at a theory regarding his mountain visits before excusing herself to make a call. As 𝗟𝐻𝐬 left the room, she walked to her white Audi R8 parked in the Academy Council lot. She drove to her office in the elegant Hanno Skytree, parked, and entered the building. Once inside her office, she locked the door and sat at her desk. Opening a secret drawer, she retrieved an old book and found a phone number. After dialing, she waited for a response. Kite's voice greeted her, acknowledging the time that had passed since their last conversation. 𝗟𝐻𝐬 reminisced about their previous interactions, recalling that it had been 26 years since they last spoke. Kite inquired about the reason for her call, and 𝗟𝐻𝐬 mentioned that one of her elite students had been watching a green-haired boy, seeking information about him. Kite revealed that the boy was his student, named Izuku, who had faced many challenges growing up due to being quirkless. 𝗟𝐻𝐬 expressed understanding of the difficulties faced by those without quirks and asked about Izuku's life. Kite recounted the bullying he endured, even from his sister, and how his family neglected him, culminating in a cruel suggestion from a supposed friend. 𝗟𝐻𝐬's frustration was palpable as she slammed her fist on her desk, enraged by the injustices Izuku had faced. As a mother of 3 daughters, 𝗟𝐻𝐬 felt a surge of anger upon learning about Izuku's experiences, particularly the neglect he faced from his family, especially his mother, who prioritized his sisters over him. To make matters worse, his parents were the renowned pro-heroes, All Might and Green Psychic. Kite acknowledged 𝗟𝐻𝐬's anger, expressing understanding and revealing that he had been training Izuku in the ways of ki, considering him like a son. He noted that Izuku could benefit from a mother figure, given the treatment he received from his own mother. 𝗟𝐻𝐬 took a deep breath and agreed, asking if Izuku had plans to join Honnoji Academy. Kite confirmed that Izuku was preparing for the elite member exam and suggested that 𝗟𝐻𝐬 would be interested to see how much Izuku's training had improved him. 𝗟𝐻𝐬 expressed her intention to speak with Kite later, reflecting on her longing for a son or a son-in-law. She felt a connection to Izuku and believed she could provide him with the maternal love he deserved. On the day of the entrance exam at Honnoji Academy, Izuku chose to wear his dojo uniform along with weighted clothes. Upon entering the school, he noticed a crowd gathering for the exam. As he surveyed the various candidates with their unique quirks, a bright light shone from the top of Honnoji Academy, revealing a figure with long, dark blue hair and striking blue eyes. She had a serious expression as her hair flowed in the wind. Satsuki Kiryuin, the student council president and one of the elite members, addressed the entrance examiners, welcoming them and explaining the 2 types of exams, one for regular students and a more challenging one for elite members. Izuku realized she was indeed the student council president. Satsuki announced the first part of the exam would be a writing test for both normal and elite candidates, signaling the start of the Honnoji Academy entrance exams. As everyone entered the exam room, Izuku noticed the 2 sections, one for the regular entrance exam and another for those aiming to become elite students. The elite section had only 5 other candidates, each radiating distinct ki. He kept his ki suppressed to avoid drawing attention as he took his seat. Among the candidates, he observed a girl with pink hair in a ponytail conversing with a girl with white hair. They were discussing their reasons for attending Honnoji Academy instead of UA, revealing their clan backgrounds. Izuku pondered the significance of their clans and wondered if they possessed quirks as well. The conversation shifted to another candidate, who expressed skepticism about Emma's decision to attend Honnoji Academy due to her quirkless status. Emma stood firm in her resolve to forge her own path, rejecting the expectations of her clan. The atmosphere grew tense as another candidate, 𝐼𝐚𝐧𝐟𝐢𝐜, dismissed their chatter, while 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐬, another student, added a playful comment about the unfolding drama. As the candidates settled into their seats, Izuku noticed a large, muscular young man with a darker complexion and short blonde hair, adding to the diverse group preparing for the exam. His eyebrows were notably thick, and he wore small gold earrings in his enlarged earlobes. Dressed in his 3-star Goku uniform, he entered the room with a commanding presence. 𝐼𝐻𝐬, one of the elite students and the chair of the Student Council Disciplinary Committee, addressed the group. He welcomed everyone to the entrance exam, explaining that while some may not pass, those who did would be part of Honnoji Academy, a beacon for the next generation of heroes. The first part of the exam was a written test, and he expected everyone to respect one another and refrain from cheating. Anyone caught cheating would fail immediately. Once completed, he instructed them to return their exams and sit quietly. As the exam commenced, one student reflected on his preparation. He had studied diligently during his free time, making the questions manageable, though still challenging. He was aware that 5 clans were present and hoped they hadn't sensed his energy. From 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 perspective, he observed the students taking their exams, particularly a boy with green hair who had caught 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐬's attention. The boy seemed promising, but his actions would ultimately reveal his true character. The next phase of the exam would involve combat against robots, while elite students would face off against 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 and others. An hour later, as the last exam papers were submitted, 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 stood to provide further instructions. He directed everyone to the next room, while the elite examiners followed him to the training arena. Upon arriving at the arena, 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 announced the next test. Each student would face off against him and 4 other elite students. Izuku, reflecting on the final test, understood the challenge ahead. He would have to fight 5 elite students, including 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽. This would not be easy, but he felt prepared. 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 explained that each student would draw a number to determine their opponent, and he encouraged them to step forward. As students drew their numbers, Izuku picked one and discovered he had drawn number 1. He returned to his place among the others. 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 then directed their attention to the board, where the first match was revealed. Elite student 𝐼𝐻𝐽 versus Izuku Midoriya. 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 informed Izuku that they would be fighting in the first round and allowed him 5 minutes to prepare, warning him that he would not hold back. Izuku acknowledged the challenge, and 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 instructed the rest to take their seats and watch. As Izuku stepped onto the field to stretch, he noticed 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽's authoritative presence. Taking a deep breath, he chose to meditate, calming his mind before the match. 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 noted this unusual approach, recognizing that most new examiners would be nervous, while Izuku seemed focused. In the stands, elite students, including Satsuki Kiryuin, Hoka Inemura, and others, watched the match unfold. Inemura expressed curiosity about Izuku's abilities, while Nui commented on his appearance, sparking a light-hearted rivalry with Nanon over who might ask him out. Raggio intervened, urging patience as the match was about to begin. Nearby, the grandchildren of the clans discussed the upcoming battle. Emma found it intriguing, while Daigo dismissed Izuku's chances against 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽. Raiden echoed his sentiments, but 𝐼𝐻𝐽 sensed something unusual about Izuku, noting a strange energy in the air. Kiriko agreed, pondering whether Izuku might possess a rare ability known as Whisper Ki. Emma concluded that they would soon find out. The match was about to begin. 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 announced that the 5 minutes were up and asked Izuku if he was ready. Izuku sprang to his feet, bouncing from side to side, confidently declaring that he was born ready. 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 then revealed his transformation as the 3 stars on his uniform's collar shone brightly. His uniform morphed into a striking hero costume, reminiscent of ancient Egyptian mummies, adorned with white bandages and a pharaoh-like mask. Silver pauldrons with red spikes and brown straps adorned his arms and chest, while electrical emissions crackled around him, resembling chains. 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐽 proudly introduced his shackle regalia MK2, explaining that every elite student possessed a Goku uniform tailored to their strength and will, emphasizing that these uniforms were earned, not given. Izuku pondered this, realizing that defeating 𝐼𝐻𝐬 would grant him the right to claim one for himself. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 warned him that while talk was easy, facing him would be a different challenge. Izuku was determined not to disappoint. With a deep breath, Izuku decided to power up, unleashing a tremendous surge of energy. The arena floor cracked under the force of his ki, sending dust and debris swirling through the air. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 shielded his face from the gust, momentarily intrigued by Izuku's extraordinary energy. He thought to himself that this power was unlike any uniform enhancement he had encountered before. As 𝐼𝐻𝐬 lowered his arm, a faint smirk appeared on his face. He acknowledged Izuku's impressive strength, noting that it defied their established systems. However, he challenged Izuku to see if his strength could withstand 𝐷SPLN itself. With a brilliant golden glow emanating from his uniform, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 entered his enhanced form, becoming an even more imposing figure. Izuku wasted no time and launched a burst of ki toward 𝐼𝐻𝐬. The blast soared across the arena, but 𝐼𝐻𝐬 dodged with surprising agility, the energy detonating behind him. He then summoned a spiked disciplinary WHP, cracking it toward Izuku. In response, Izuku flipped back, narrowly avoiding the attack, and countered with a rapid series of ki blasts. 3 shots connected with 𝐼𝐻𝐬's chest, forcing him to stumble back. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 straightened, smoke drifting off his uniform, his eyes gleaming with excitement. He complimented Izuku's strategy of keeping his distance but warned him that it wouldn't last long. With a powerful roar, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 charged forward, the ground trembling beneath him. He swung his massive arm down, aiming to pin Izuku to the ground with a disciplinary strike meant to end the fight swiftly. However, Izuku slipped under the strike, his ki flaring around his fists. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's eyes widened as he realized Izuku was not retreating but countering. Izuku twisted his body and delivered a punch straight into 𝐼𝐻𝐬's stomach, the impact resonating throughout the arena. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's hand ignited with a brilliant glow, energy surging across his arm like lightning. Before Izuku could react, 𝐼𝐻𝐬's counterblow struck him squarely in the chest, sending him flying backward. Izuku soared through the air, the shockwave from the impact propelling him away. He crashed into the ground, skidding across the stone and kicking up dust before finally coming to a stop. The crowd gasped, captivated by the sheer force of the exchange. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 declared that this was the 𝐷SPLN one faced when standing against the Elite Four. Despite the impact, Izuku fought to regain his composure. He gritted his teeth, forcing his limbs to stabilize. At the last moment, he twisted mid-spin, his ki flaring around him like a jet of wind. He barely managed to stop himself from being launched out of the arena. The entire stadium held its breath as dust swirled around him. Crouched low, one hand on the ground and the other clutching his chest, Izuku trembled but his eyes burned with determination. He realized that 𝐼𝐻𝐬 had amplified the force of his own attack and thrown it back at him. One wrong move could spell disaster. Across the arena, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 observed Izuku's narrow recovery with a hint of respect. He acknowledged Izuku's ability to catch himself after such a powerful impact and challenged him to show whether his resolve matched his power. Izuku pushed himself upright, his aura flickering back to life. This fight was far from over. Dust fell from Izuku's clothes as he stood tall, despite the pain in his chest. He wiped a streak of dirt from his lip and smirked, a confident grin that vibrated through the air. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's interest peaked as Izuku rolled his shoulders and cracked his neck, his aura reigniting. He declared that it was time to turn up the intensity. The ground trembled as Izuku's ki exploded outward in a spiraling column, resembling a tornado of emerald fire. The arena tiles shattered beneath him, splitting into cracks from the sheer force of his energy. His hair lifted, glowing with bright green streaks, while the air warped around him from the pressure of his rising ki. The clan grandchildren gasped in awe, realizing the magnitude of Izuku's power. Back on the arena floor, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 raised an arm to shield himself from the wind generated by Izuku's aura. His eyes widened slightly, a rare expression of shock for him. He thought to himself that this pressure was unlike anything he had ever encountered. Izuku's energy was wild and unrefined, yet powerful beyond reason. Izuku stomped forward, cracking the ground beneath him, his aura swirling like a living storm. He challenged 𝐼𝐻𝐬 to see if his 𝐷𝗃LN could keep up with him now. Slowly, he pushed himself off the cracked arena floor, dust drifting from his shoulders. Despite the pain from 𝐼𝐻𝐬's counterstrike, a determined grin spread across his face. He tilted his head, cracking his neck, and rolled his shoulders, locking his emerald eyes onto 𝐼𝐻𝐬 with renewed focus. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 stood firm, his massive arms folded and golden aura shimmering around him. He anticipated Izuku to charge recklessly or unleash another barrage of ki blasts. What he didn't expect was for Izuku to start speaking. Izuku wiped a smear of BLD from the corner of his mouth and pointed at him. He wanted to understand what he was facing. He inquired whether 𝐼𝐻𝐬's counter move was a quirk or a function of his uniform. A murmur rippled through the stands, and even the clan grandchildren leaned forward, intrigued. Emma whispered about Izuku analyzing 𝐼𝐻𝐬 mid-fight, while Daigo scoffed, believing Izuku was wasting his breath. To everyone's surprise, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 stepped forward, placing his hands behind his back as if addressing a student. He explained that his ability was not a quirk but the power of his shackle regalia, his 2-star Goku uniform. Izuku listened intently as 𝐼𝐻𝐬 continued, revealing that by restricting himself, he could store kinetic energy and release it through defensive counterattacks. In simple terms, when struck, he would strike back with the opponent's own strength multiplied. Izuku's jaw tightened in realization. He understood that the hit 𝐼𝐻𝐬 had delivered was his own power returning to him. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 confirmed this, adding that it was only a fraction of his output and that had he used full power, Izuku would not be standing. A chill ran through Izuku, but it quickly transformed into a sharper, more confident expression. He recognized the clear rule: if he attacked head-on he would lose, but if he outsmarted 𝐼𝐻𝐬, the outcome could be different. The air crackled around him as a faint green aura began to glow at his feet. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's stern expression slowly shifted into an approving smirk, urging Izuku to impress him and demonstrate whether his mind was as strong as his power. Izuku slid into a stance, fists glowing with rising energy, confident that he had more to show. As the arena trembled with anticipation, Izuku took a slow breath, grounding himself as the dust from 𝐼𝐻𝐬's last strike settled. He wiped a thin trickle of BLD from his mouth, lowered his hand, and stared straight at the towering disciplinarian of the Elite Four. Since 𝐼𝐻𝐬 wouldn't reveal anything about his quirk, Izuku decided to show him something instead. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 raised an eyebrow, intrigued. The students in the stands leaned forward, whispers rippling among them. Izuku closed his eyes, shifting his breathing to a slow, controlled rhythm. The roaring crowd, the tension of the match, and the ache in his body faded into the background. His aura dimmed, then sharpened, compressed like a spring pushed to its limit. Inside his mind, everything went still. He thought about how he didn't want to use this technique so early, but 𝐼𝐻𝐬's defense was too strong. If he didn't increase his output, he would be overwhelmed. This was the perfect opportunity to use his new technique. As he exhaled, the ground beneath him began to crack lightly, responding to the shift in his energy. Izuku opened his eyes, now blazing with fierce determination. He declared his technique, and a violent boom erupted outward as a blazing red aura exploded around his body. It surged like a living flame, creating a shockwave that pushed dust and debris away from him. The students gasped, and the clan grandchildren shot to their feet, while elite students widened their eyes in astonishment. Even 𝐼𝐻𝐬's posture stiffened, his hazel eyes narrowing in controlled astonishment. The red aura flared brighter, outlining Izuku's muscles and the intense pressure coursing through him. Every breath echoed like a heartbeat of pure, controlled power. He raised his head, his voice resonating with strength as he announced his technique. The arena trembled from the sheer force radiating off him. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 noted that this aura was unfamiliar, dangerous, and that Izuku's body was straining to contain it. Izuku acknowledged the pressure Kaioken put on his body but asserted that if managed correctly, even someone like 𝐼𝐻𝐬 wouldn't be able to handle it. 𝐼𝐻𝐬, intrigued despite himself, recognized the recklessness of Izuku's strategy but acknowledged that 𝐷𝗃LN grows from challenge. He encouraged Izuku to show whether his resolve was enough to withstand his own power. Izuku lowered himself into a stance, his aura bursting upward like a red flame. He challenged 𝐽𝐻𝐬 to watch closely as he vanished, creating a thunderous shockwave in his wake. 𝐽𝐻𝐬 barely had time to react before Izuku appeared in front of him, fist already ped back. With a powerful strike, Izuku slammed his fist into 𝐽𝐻𝐬's reinforced chest, sending a ripple through the disciplinarian's massive body. The impact echoed like a cannon blast, pushing 𝐽𝐻𝐬 backward, an achievement that stunned everyone watching. 𝐽𝐻𝐬 gritted his teeth, the arena floor cracking from the force he absorbed. He acknowledged Izuku's impressive strength, realizing that the technique was far more potent than his base energy. Izuku stumbled slightly, feeling the strain of Kaioken but exhilarated that his plan worked. 𝐽𝐻𝐬 steadied himself, fire burning in his eyes, and acknowledged that Izuku continued to reveal techniques beyond what any ordinary student should possess. Izuku wiped sweat from his forehead, his aura crackling around him like red lightning. He declared that Kaioken was not just a power-up but a promise to push past every limit, no matter who stood in his way. The red aura flared violently as he braced for the next exchange, ready to push even further. The ground split beneath 𝐽𝐻𝐬's feet as Izuku's aura crackled like wildfire. For a heartbeat, the arena fell into a tense silence, every spectator holding their breath as the two forces faced off again. Then, 𝐽𝐻𝐬 roared, declaring that if Izuku insisted on pushing past his limits, he would honor that resolve with the full weight of his own. He reached behind his back and yanked the spiked WHP forward, stabbing its spikes deep into his own flesh. Izuku's eyes widened in shock, realizing 𝐽𝐻𝐬 was intentionally hurting himself. A massive surge of yellow energy erupted from 𝐽𝐻𝐬's body, shooting skyward like a pillar of lightning. The arena shook, and the stands trembled as the crowd stood in astonishment. 𝐽𝐻𝐬 activated his shackle regalia, absorbing the pain and transforming it into raw power. Thick, iron-like armor enveloped 𝐽𝐻𝐬's arms and torso, locking into place like a monstrous suit of restraint and destiny. He seemed even larger, more imposing, more unstoppable. Izuku swallowed hard, realizing the intensity of the situation. 𝐽𝐻𝐬 slammed one armored fist into his palm, the sound echoing like thunder. He declared that his quirk was retribution, stating that pain was not his weakness but his fuel. The more he endured, the greater the power he unleashed. Izuku tightened his stance, feeling the pressure 𝐽𝐻𝐬 was releasing. He thought to himself that while his previous Kaioken had pushed 𝐽𝐻𝐬 back, this new form was far tougher. He would need to go beyond his limits. 𝐽𝐻𝐬 pointed at him, acknowledging Izuku's reckless courage and declaring that he would test whether that courage was true resolve or mere desperation. Then, 𝐽𝐻𝐬 charged, moving like a tank across the battlefield. The ground trembled beneath his steps, each stride creating a shockwave that sent dust and debris flying. Izuku braced himself as 𝐽𝐻𝐬 unleashed a powerful punch, which hit with the force of a meteor. An explosion of energy erupted, illuminating the arena with blinding light. Izuku was thrown backward, crashing through a section of the arena wall before skidding across the floor, his red aura flickering like a fading flame. The crowd erupted in shouts, some expressing disbelief at the intensity of the battle. Through the smoke and rubble, Izuku slowly stood back up, his legs shaking and breaths ragged, but his eyes burned with determination. He wiped BLD from his lips and forced himself into a fighting stance, acknowledging 𝐽𝐻𝐬's newfound power and realizing he had no choice but to push himself further. He lowered his head, his red aura sparking violently around him as he prepared for his next move. The arena rumbled as he called upon his Kaioken, announcing a multiplier that would amplify his strength. 𝐽𝐻𝐬's eyes widened in response, and Izuku unleashed a shockwave that was twice as strong as before, his muscles swelling under the strain as he pushed his body beyond its limits once again. The elite students stood in awe, watching the intensity of the fight unfold. Satsuki narrowed her eyes, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 frantically typed on his device, and Ryuko watched with growing interest. Nui smiled, intrigued by the unfolding battle. 𝐽𝐻𝐬 felt the pressure and lowered into a defensive stance, challenging Izuku to show him his true power. Izuku vanished in a red blur, and the clash that followed shook Honnoji Academy. His aura sharpened into a spear-like burst as he reappeared above 𝐼𝐻𝐬, delivering a powerful kick that struck with enough force to crater the ground beneath them. A shockwave erupted, sending debris flying. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's armor absorbed the impact, charging him further with energy. He declared that the impact had been absorbed and released a burst of retributive energy, announcing a significant increase in his output. Izuku was blasted backward but managed to flip in midair, stabilizing himself with enhanced reflexes. He realized that 𝐼𝐻𝐬 was waiting for him to strike again, intending to hit back even harder. With his heart pounding and the strain of Kaioken setting in, Izuku prepared for another attack. The arena trembled under their clashing energies, and the crowd buzzed with excitement. Nanon leaned forward, surprised by Izuku's strength, while Sanejima noted the sharpness of his movements. Inomuta analyzed the situation, realizing that while Izuku's output had spiked, 𝐼𝐻𝐬's quirk was absorbing that power. Ryuko observed with growing concern, knowing that if Izuku continued to attack recklessly, he would be in trouble. Satsuki calculated the battle's dynamics, understanding that strength without strategy would lead to failure. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 smiled, intrigued by the raw energy displayed in the arena. Izuku clenched his fists, realizing that if he couldn't overpower 𝐼𝐻𝐬, he needed to outsmart him. Both fighters charged, their next clash destined to shake the academy. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's aura surged, glowing brightly as he prepared for his final attack. The air warped around him, and the ground fractured as he announced his ultimate move. Izuku's eyes widened, then narrowed with determination as he called upon an even greater level of Kaioken. Red lightning exploded outward, and the arena tiles beneath him disintegrated from the sheer pressure. The crowd fell silent, stunned by the display of power. As both fighters locked eyes, they charged forward, and the ground erupted beneath them. Their fists met in a moment of stillness before a tremendous crack echoed through the arena. Izuku's punch overpowered 𝐼𝐻𝐬's, shattering the energy he had stored and striking him with full force. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 was propelled backward, crashing into the arena wall with enough force to create a crater. Dust erupted, and the stadium shook. Izuku collapsed to one knee, breathing heavily, his body trembling but refusing to fall. The crowd erupted in cheers, astonished by his victory. Emma jumped to her feet, celebrating the unexpected outcome, while others expressed their disbelief at the intensity of the fight. Izuku had used Kaioken to break through 𝐼𝐻𝐬's full power, showcasing his incredible determination and strength. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 observed with gleaming eyes, intrigued by the child who had pushed beyond his limits without fear. He recognized potential in Satsuki as she slowly stood, her voice calm, firm, and regal as she declared the match decided. The dust began to settle, and Izuku forced himself to his feet, trembling, with a faint red aura flickering around him before it faded completely. His vision swam, but he focused on the crater where 𝐼𝐻𝐬 had been slammed. For a moment, there was silence, no movement, no sound, just dust drifting in the air. Then, heavy footsteps echoed from within the crater. Izuku's breath hitched as 𝐼𝐻𝐬's massive silhouette emerged through the dust, armor cracked, face bruised, yet standing tall. His expression was serious but proud as he walked back into the arena, stopping several meters from Izuku. The stadium fell silent as 𝐼𝐻𝐬 bowed deeply, a gesture that shook the ground. He acknowledged Izuku's courage, resolve, and indomitable will, stating that Izuku had faced his full power and prevailed with his own. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 then proclaimed that he, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 of the Elite Four, recognized Izuku's strength. The crowd erupted into cheers and shocked gasps, with some students fainting and others screaming in disbelief. Nui clapped happily, Nanon rolled her eyes but smiled, Ryuko smirked, Inomuta typed furiously, and Sanejima nodded in impressed approval. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 leaned back, delighted, while Satsuki watched Izuku with intensity, measuring him. She stepped forward to the balcony rail, her voice slicing through the noise with regal authority, announcing that Izuku Midoriya had passed the elite examiner's trial. The arena thundered with applause, but Izuku smiled weakly before his knees buckled, collapsing under the weight of exhaustion from the Kaioken technique. Pain lanced through his muscles and he struggled to move. Before he could fall completely, two figures rushed to support him, Emma and Jiro, who had come down from the stands. They assured him they had him covered, with 𝐼𝐻𝐬 expressing relief that he wasn't in worse shape. Kiriko and Raiden followed closely, while Daigo looked annoyed but impressed. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 stepped closer, kneeling beside Izuku with surprising gentleness, advising him not to force himself to stand. He placed a heavy hand on Izuku's shoulder, stating that he had earned rest. Izuku managed a tired grin, thanking 𝐾𝐮𝐬 for his support. Satsuki turned away, instructing that Izuku be taken to the medical wing for full treatment, emphasizing his value. Nui, appearing beside Satsuki, teased her about sounding possessive, but Satsuki shot her a glare as Ryuko snickered and Ragio smiled knowingly. As medics rushed Izuku off the battlefield, his vision remained blurry. Everything felt muffled, as if sound traveled through water. The anti-gravity stretcher hummed beneath him, lifting his body effortlessly while his limbs twitched uselessly from the strain. Through the haze, he noticed 𝐾𝐮𝐬 walking beside him, calm and steady, as if scripting him personally. Izuku struggled to turn his head, feeling as if he were moving a boulder. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 explained that he too needed evaluation, stating that a commander who ignored his injuries was a fool. It was the closest thing to concern Izuku would receive from him. Inside the medical wing, the doors slid open, releasing the sharp scent of disinfectants and herbal salves. The room was a mix of high-tech equipment and old-style bandage cabinets. Standing before them was a familiar figure, Baraso Mankenshoku, who gasped upon seeing Izuku. He expressed disbelief at Izuku's condition and chastised 𝐾𝐮𝐬 for allowing Izuku to take such risks. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 defended Izuku's resolve, stating it deserved respect and immediate medical attention. Baraso, realizing the gravity of the situation, called for strong bandages. Tsukuyo Mankenshoku emerged from the supply room, her warm smile contrasting with the chaos. She assessed Izuku's condition and noted he looked like he had been hit by a freight train, prompting Baraso to humorously agree. Tsukuyo scolded him for yelling at the patient, and Baraso immediately deflated. Izuku was rolled onto a padded table as medics began scanning his muscles, bones, and energy flow. Sparks of red energy flickered across his skin, remnants of the Kaioken technique, causing the machines to beep nervously. Baraso leaned over him, inquiring about his pain levels. Izuku managed a weak laugh, acknowledging he was okay, though Tsukuyo insisted he was far from it but would recover. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 stood near the door, arms crossed, watching closely as the medics worked, looking uncomfortable with the situation. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 acknowledged that Izuku's display of power had been unexpected. Izuku, despite the pain, apologized for hitting him hard, but 𝐾𝐮𝐬 insisted there was no need to apologize for fighting with honor. Baraso, taken aback by 𝐾𝐮𝐬's praise, remarked on how special Izuku truly was, prompting a giggle from Tsukuyo. Meanwhile, Emma stepped forward, fists loose at her sides, eyes cold and focused. The roar of the stadium faded into a distant hum as her heartbeat steadied. This was her moment to prove herself to the elders and the entire clan. Not a curse, not a burden, not a mistake. A faint glow shimmered around her body, subtle and disciplined, as she resolved to show the power of her heavenly ki. Behind her were towering lacquered doors carved with the crest of the Corleone clan. Inside, the elders sat in a semicircle, their faces stern and their presence heavy. Servants whispered in the corners, and the atmosphere felt suffocating. The head elder set down his staff and announced that they had received reports of a girl born into their clan, the first female heir in 60 years. Murmurs rippled through the room as another elder remarked that girls were rare in their bloodline, suggesting it must be fate. However, a sneering elder added that it could also be an omen. Then came the whisper that struck harder than any blow Emma would ever receive: she was quirkless. A silence followed, sharp and cruel. The same elder stated that being born quirkless in their clan was disgraceful. Emma felt her chest tighten but maintained a neutral expression, the Corleone way, while her heart ached. The elders continued, cold and dismissive, noting that not only was she quirkless, but she also possessed a strange power the monks called heavenly ki. Another elder dismissed it as an old superstition, untamed and dangerous. The head elder questioned the value of ki without a quirk, deeming it a curiosity at best and a liability at worst. Emma clenched her tiny fists behind her back, feeling the weight of their words. The harshest voice of all, the elder who never sugarcoated anything, declared that she would never lead or represent them. They could train her if they wished, but they should not expect greatness. Those words burned into her very being. In the present, the arena buzzed with energy as Nanon prepared a sonic barrage, but Emma remained unfazed. Her heavenly ki flared faintly, swirling like pale gold mist around her feet. She reflected on her training, her struggles, and her determination to prove them wrong. Nanon smirked from atop her sound system, teasing Emma about her serious demeanor and questioning whether she truly planned to defeat her. Emma stepped forward, her voice calm and sharp, stating that she was not planning to, she was going to. The entire stadium erupted as the bell rang. Nanon tilted her head with a smug grin, suggesting that Emma shouldn't take things so seriously since she would pass even if she lost, assuming she was worthy. Emma did not respond. Instead, she vanished in a golden flash, moving faster than the crowd could blink. Her fist connected with Nanon's face before the Elite Four member could finish her sentence, sending her tumbling backward off her platform. The arena erupted in chaos as Nanon quickly regained her footing, cheeks flushed with embarrassment rather than pain. She accused Emma of a sneak attack, calling it rude. Emma's cold stare did not waver as she clarified that it was a warning. Nanon dusted herself off dramatically and declared that if Emma was going to play rough, she would stop holding back. She raised her baton, and the speakers on her uniform opened like mechanical pedals, massive subwoofers unfolding behind her and towers of amplifiers rising from the platform. Holographic musical notes formed around her as she prepared to unleash her power. Emma narrowed her eyes, her heavenly ki shimmering around her like a gentle golden wind. She recognized the strength of an Elite Four uniform and felt ready to fight. Nanon pointed her baton at Emma, warning her to try not to get blown away. With a flourish, she activated her speakers, unleashing a powerful sonic blast toward Emma. Emma slid one foot back, ki swirling around her palms as she prepared her defense. She called forth her heavenly ki to create a shimmering golden barrier just as the sonic blast struck, resulting in a massive explosion of dust that shook the ground. Nanon grinned, eager to see how long Emma could last. Emma's voice echoed through the dust, calm and unwavering, stating that she would last as long as it took. As the dust settled, Emma stood firm, her heavenly ki barrier flickering but intact. Nanon's grin faltered as she realized the challenge ahead. Emma dropped her stance slightly, golden energy rising around her fists, and declared that Nanon had not yet seen annoying. In the sidelines, the grandkids from several major clans gathered, their eyes sharpened as they watched the battle unfold. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐿 of the 𝐼𝐻𝐿 clan, electricity crackling at his fingertips, scoffed at the 𝐒𝐿𝐬 elders for casting aside a girl who awakened heavenly ki, the rarest form of spiritual energy. Kiriko from the Genji clan, sitting with perfect posture, noted that the 𝐒𝐿𝐬 clan had always favored tradition over logic, preferring male heirs and quirks that fit their mold. Jiro from the Akashiro clan leaned forward, impressed by Emma's stable and refined ki, speculating on what she could achieve with proper training. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 remarked that someone like them would treat her like royalty, while Kiriko added that their clan would fight to claim her as a disciple. Daigo from the 𝐼𝐻𝐿 clan, the most physically imposing of the group, pointed out that what mattered was Emma's current performance. He grinned, recognizing her potential as a formidable fighter, regardless of her clan's bloodline. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 acknowledged that the last person to wield heavenly ki had shaken the power structure of Japan, and Emma wielded it naturally, without training. Kiriko pondered why the 𝐒𝐿𝐬 clan would hide her existence. Fear, tradition, or something more dangerous? Jiro snorted, stating that old clans despise change and being proven wrong. 𝐼𝐻𝐿's expression turned serious as he predicted that when Emma won, the 𝐒𝐿𝐬 elders would scramble to pretend they had always believed in her. Kiriko smirked, confident that Emma would ignore them, as a heavenly ki user did not bow to outdated hierarchies. Daigo's eyes sharpened as he watched Emma rush through Nanon's sound blasts, moving faster than the eye could track. He encouraged her to show them what they had thrown away, while Jiro expressed eagerness to see what heavenly ki could truly accomplish. The air rippled violently as 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 𝐃𝐞𝐭𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐬 unleashed another barrage of sound shockwaves, each capable of pulverizing concrete. Yet 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬's heavenly ki burned brighter, swirling in shades of gold, white, and faint celestial blue. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬, frustrated, questioned why 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 was still standing, asserting that her armor was MK2 for a reason. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 wiped the BLD from her lip, her expression calm but filled with resolve as she declared that this was nothing compared to what she had endured back home. She challenged the notion that sound could break her, and her aura erupted, blasting the shockwaves apart. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 knew she had to show everyone that heavenly ki was not a mistake and that she was not a mistake. She shifted her stance, grounding her feet and glowing palms, and announced that if 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 wanted to see her true strength, she would show a glimpse. The arena floor cracked beneath her as a pillar of radiant ki spiraled upward, and a halo-like flare formed behind her, brief, unstable, but terrifyingly powerful. The crowd gasped in awe. Even the Elite Four leaned forward, their attention captured. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬's confident smirk wavered as she realized 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬's energy had surged. No, it had tripled. Was she even human? 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 took a single step, and the entire arena trembled. In an instant, she vanished and reappeared in front of 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 with a speed that defied belief. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐬 warned not to blink before she struck. A gentle yet powerful palm move sent 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 skidding backward across the arena, enveloped in a burst of golden light. In the medical wing, Izuku lay on a hospital bed, bandaged but alert. Baraso Mankenshoku wheeled in a small TV and placed it near Izuku's bedside, eager for him to catch the rest of the matches after all his hard work. Tsukuyo set down a tray of food beside him, encouraging him to eat while he watched, as healing was faster on a full stomach. Izuku managed a weak smile, but his gaze was fixed on the screen. Then he saw her, 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬, glowing in heavenly ki ascendant mode. Her form reminded him of something ancient and primal, not merely a quirk. Despite the pain, Izuku sat up straighter, feeling a connection to her energy, which seemed purer and calmer, almost divine. He clenched his fist, recognizing her flow and control. Her ki was heavenly. Baraso whistled in admiration, noting that 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 was indeed the Corleone girl, a walking miracle. Izuku continued to watch, his interest igniting. He pondered whether heavenly ki was similar to his own or something even greater. As 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 blitzed toward 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 again, Izuku felt excitement and inspiration stir within him, along with the spark of a potential rivalry. He thought about training with 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬, learning from her, and challenging her. What he witnessed on screen was not just power, it was destiny. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬's aura intensified, golden and white rings of heavenly ki radiating outward. She lifted both hands, palms glowing, and began forming rapid-fire ki blasts, small, tight spheres of compressed energy. She challenged 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 to counter this attack and unleashed a flurry of brilliant blasts that shot toward her like celestial projectiles. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 gritted her teeth and snapped her baton forward, confident that her Symphony Regalia MK2 could handle the challenge. With a flourish, she activated her crescendo counter, unleashing vibrating shockwaves that took the shape of spiraling sound blades. Each ki blast collided midair with her vibrating blades, creating a symphony of explosive sounds and flashes of light that filled the arena, scattering dust and tearing grooves into the floor. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 pressed forward, firing more blasts in a weaving pattern, aiming to hit 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 from angles she couldn't track. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬's eyes sharpened, and she adapted quickly, shifting her speakers into a circular formation to unleash her sonic bloom barrage. A wave of compressed sound exploded outward, shredding 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬's curved ki blasts and sending a shockwave across the arena. 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 crossed her arms to guard, feeling the force push her back slightly, her heavenly ki aura rippling violently. From the stands, the clan kids watched intently, amazed by the unfolding battle. Kiriko exclaimed that 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 was pushing 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 back, while Raiden noted that she was reading every move. Jiro remarked on the insane perception heavenly ki provided, suggesting 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 could see the sound waves themselves. In the arena, 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬 dropped her guard and inhaled sharply, her eyes glowing with fierce determination. She acknowledged 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐬's strength but declared that more than noise would be needed to stop her. She moved both palms forward, firing a continuous stream of small ki blasts that created a glowing wave of rapid explosions. 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽 grinned through the strain, eager for a worthy challenge. Her uniform speakers shifted again, forming a massive trumpet-like cannon. 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽 proclaimed that she would respond with something bigger and unleashed her mega forte, sound cannon. A titanic beam of pure sound surged forward, clashing with Emma's wave of ki blasts. The arena erupted in light and sound as the two attacks collided, creating a tremendous explosion that sent shockwaves throughout the stadium. As the dust settled, both fighters remained standing, breathing but resolute. Emma's heavenly ki shimmered around her like a holy fire, while 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽 straightened her uniform, a wide grin on her face. Both girls understood that it was time to unleash their full potential. 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽 flicked her baton, and the Symphony Regalia MK2 activated, multiple instrument ports opening across her armor. Her grin sharpened as she acknowledged Emma's strength, admitting that she would use her ultimate performance against her. The air trembled, and even the stadium barriers flickered in response to her power. With a dramatic flourish, 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽 raised her baton high and declared the start of her ultimate orchestral devastation. All the instruments fired simultaneously, unleashing a deafening fusion of sonic shockwaves, slicing sound blades, bass cannon pulses, organ blasts, and harmonic vibrations that tore the ground apart. The crowd screamed as the arena floor shattered under the weight of the attack. Emma closed her eyes, focusing as the roar of the attack approached. Her breathing slowed, and she recalled the elder's dismissive words about her heavenly ki. Clenching her fists, she resolved to prove them wrong. As she opened her eyes, now glowing with pure white fire, her aura erupted into a calm, swirling pillar. Emma declared that her clan deemed this technique forbidden for those without a worthy spirit, but she had never cared about their opinions. Gathering golden white ki between her palms, she formed a radiant, star-like core. Her voice echoed across the stadium as she announced her technique, Heavenly Ki, First Divine Form. The sphere condensed violently, and a halo flared behind Emma. Her hair lifted, and her aura shone like a newborn sun. With a powerful move of her palms, she unleashed a massive beam of blazing heavenly ki, pure and divine. The clash between 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽's orchestral devastation and Emma's celestial smite was monumental. Shockwaves rippled across the stadium, craters formed beneath their clash, and barriers flickered from the sheer force. Wind blasted outward like a hurricane, merging light and sound into a blinding explosion. As the light faded, two silhouettes remained in the cratered arena, both breathing and scorched, refusing to fall. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see which fighter would drop first. The blinding light slowly dissipated, revealing the shattered arena, with shattered tiles scattered everywhere. In the center stood 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽, her armor cracked and breath uneven, and Emma, her aura flickering but still upright. 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽's speakers sparked and short-circuited, but she refused to give in, determined not to let a newcomer defeat her. She lifted her baton, her fingers trembling uncontrollably. Emma raised her head, her eyes glowing faintly. She stepped forward, and 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽's knees buckled. Emma declared that her heavenly energy would not lose to noise. With that, 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽's armor finally gave out, collapsing in broken pieces around her. 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽 fell to one knee, looking up at Emma, still smirking despite her defeat. She acknowledged Emma's strength, but then she collapsed fully. The bell rang, and the announcer declared Emma Corleone the winner. The stadium erupted in cheers and disbelief. Emma exhaled shakily and fell to one knee, exhausted but victorious. In a hidden chamber, the clan elders watched a large holographic screen displaying the clash replay. The final attack from 𝐼𝐴𝐻𝐽 and Emma's celestial smite played out, followed by silence. One elder gripped his cane tightly, unable to believe the level of heavenly ki output from Emma. Another elder, known for his harshness, stared in shock, realizing she had mastered a divine technique at such a young age. An elder bitterly remarked that they had shunned her, calling her a disgrace and claiming a woman could not carry their legacy. The first elder insisted they were right to cast her aside, deeming her power unstable and dangerous. The youngest elder slammed his fist on the table, arguing that Emma had defeated an Elite Four member with a forbidden technique. The second elder looked away, conflicted about the implications of 𝐼𝐻𝐻's power. He warned that other clans would either want her, fear her, or attempt to control her. The first elder's eyes narrowed as he urged the others to act before she became a threat. A chill ran through the chamber as the spy awaited instructions. The first elder ordered the spy to keep watching 𝐼𝐻𝐻 and report everything. He leaned forward, his voice cold, stating they would decide whether she should return to the clan or be erased from its history forever. Back in the arena, medics rushed to 𝐼𝐻𝐻, lifting her carefully. Izuku watched from the medical wing on the TV, eyes wide with awe. He felt deep in his chest that 𝐼𝐻𝐻 was not just strong, she was a force of destiny. As 𝐼𝐻𝐻 arrived in the medical wing, 𝗂𝐻𝐻 and Tsukuyo quickly helped her and 𝑁𝑁 onto the medical beds. 𝑁𝑁 groaned, acknowledging the beating she had taken, while 𝗂𝐻𝐻 complimented her for putting up a fight. 𝑁𝑁 remarked that it felt like her body had been turned into a drum set. Tsukuyo gently pressed a cold pack against 𝑁𝑁's forehead, reminding her to hold still and noting that it could have been worse. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 leaned back on her bed, wincing as soreness settled in. She admitted she hadn't expected 𝑁𝑁 to be that strong. 𝗂𝐻𝐻 reassured her that she had handled herself well against a formidable opponent. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 let out a slow breath, feeling as if she had been hit by a truck. 𝑁𝑁 welcomed her to that feeling, and Tsukuyo insisted they both needed rest. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 nodded slightly, closing her eyes as fatigue washed over her. She complimented 𝑁𝑁's Goku uniform and asked about her quirk, which 𝑁𝑁 explained was called Symphony Pulse. 𝑁𝑁 described how she could generate, control, and amplify sound waves, using them to boost her speed or disrupt an opponent's balance. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 acknowledged the ringing in her ears, and 𝑁𝑁 smirked proudly, stating that being loud was her thing. 𝗂𝐻𝐻 remarked that loud was an understatement, noting how 𝑁𝑁's last blast nearly shook the stadium. 𝑁𝑁 insisted that if one was going to fight, they should do it with style. As they spoke, 𝑁𝑁 noticed Izuku and 𝐾𝐿 standing near the doorway. She complimented Izuku on his impressive fight with 𝐾𝐿, who acknowledged her confidence with a proud but controlled demeanor. Izuku, flustered, downplayed his efforts. 𝑁𝑁 teased him, mentioning that his best had nearly blown up half the floor. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 observed their interaction, surprised at how casual the mood felt despite their injuries. Izuku asked who was up next, and 𝐾𝐿 informed him it would be 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐻 of the 𝐵ARRACK clan against the elite student 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐻. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐻 stepped forward, lightning crackling behind him as if nature recognized his presence. His white hair flicked in the wind, glowing faintly with electricity. With golden eyes narrowed in confidence, he expressed his hope that 𝐶𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐻 would be stronger than the previous disappointments. He formed a blue orb of electricity in his palm, ready for a worthy challenge, declaring that the 𝐵ARRACK clan did not step into an arena for anything less. If he couldn't handle even a fraction of his strength, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 would end this in one blow. He glanced toward the stands, feeling the weight of the students and elites watching him. They should witness what true power looked like. No one here was stronger than him. In a flashback to when 𝐼𝐻𝐻 was 8 years old, the training grounds of the 𝐵ARRACK clan echoed with the sound of clashing energy. Young 𝐼𝐻𝐻 stood in the center, his chest rising and falling with controlled breaths. Sparks of lightning danced across his arms, illuminating his small but already muscular frame. Clan members, older boys around 11 and 12, lay scattered around him, groaning in defeat. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 wiped a bit of dust from his cheek, unimpressed. This was a waste of time. With his ki and lightning quirk, fighting them felt pathetic. One of the older boys struggled to stand, glaring weakly at him. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 turned his head slightly, his eyes cold and sharp. Strength didn't follow age, it followed talent, power, and effort, qualities they all lacked. Lightning crackled around his hand, not as an attack but as a statement. Elders watching from the shadows whispered among themselves, noting his terrifying control for a child and expressing concern about his pride. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 stepped off the training platform, bored. If this was the best the clan could offer, then none of them were worth his time. He needed real challenges, not warm-ups. The other children watched in silence, knowing even at 8 years old he stood far above them, an unstoppable force shaped by destiny, power, and absolute self-belief. The elders continued their hushed conversation as 𝐼𝐻𝐻 walked off the training grounds, lightning still flickering faintly around his arms. His power grew every day, but so did his pride. If left unchecked, it could become dangerous. He treated others like stepping stones, and even the older trainees feared him. Before they could continue, the air shifted, growing heavier, thicker, charged. A tall figure approached through the swirling dust. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐃𝐞𝐭𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐬, Raiden's father, stepped into the torchlight like a storm taking human form. His skin was a deep, commanding shade that contrasted with his wild white hair, which flared outward as if permanently electrified. His icy blue eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, piercing through the training grounds and making the elders straighten instinctively. His white martial garments were torn from countless battles, wrapped tightly around his powerful frame, and the swirling currents of air bent subtly around him in respect or fear. Lightning danced faintly across the scars on his arms as he walked, each step controlled and filled with authority. He addressed the elders, asking if they were discussing his son again. They expressed their concerns about the boy's temperament, but 𝐒𝐮𝐬 silenced them with a raised hand. His son's temperament was exactly what it should be. Pride was the fuel of their clan's evolution. Power without pride was wasted potential. His gaze shifted to Raiden, who stood with his arms crossed, lightning crackling along his shoulders. The resemblance between father and son was undeniable, two storms born from the same sky. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 walked forward and placed a firm hand atop Raiden's head, telling him he did well and should never suppress his power or doubt his capabilities. Raiden's eyes burned with fierce pride as he declared he would surpass everyone in the clan, even his father. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 smiled, pleased with his son's ambition. The elders exchanged uneasy looks, not just because Raiden was strong, but because with a father like 𝐒𝐮𝐬 guiding him, the boy's pride would become something far greater. Raiden exhaled slowly, letting the memory of his father's words fade as the present moment settled in. The arena gates rumbled open, and he stepped through them with his usual calm arrogance. Sparks of electricity snapped around his arms, reacting to his rising ki. As Raiden entered the arena, he immediately spotted 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 standing in the center, waiting for the fight to start. 𝐮𝐬𝐽 rolled his shoulders, sword resting casually against his shoulder, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. He remarked that it took Raiden long enough and thought he might have chickened out. Raiden didn't even blink, responding that he was not to be confused with the weakling 𝐮𝐬𝐽 was used to fighting. He walked in when he felt like it. 𝐮𝐬𝐽 smirked, expressing his hope that Raiden would show up confident, as it would be more satisfying to cut that confidence in half. Raiden stepped forward, electricity crackling beneath his boots, the ground trembling slightly as he gathered his ki. He challenged 𝐮𝐬𝐽 to try, warning him that his clan raised him to crush opponents who relied on empty bravado. If 𝐮𝐬𝐽 broke easily, this wouldn't even warm him up. The tension in the arena rose instantly, with students leaning forward in their seats, sensing two powerhouses about to collide. 𝐮𝐬𝐽 lowered his stance, gripping his blade with both hands, and declared it was time to see if the 𝐼𝐻 clan could back up Raiden's words. Raiden cracked his knuckles, lightning beginning to orbit around him like a storm ready to burst. He warned 𝐮𝐬𝐽 to prepare himself, as he wouldn't hold back, not even for a second. 𝐮𝐬𝐽 responded with determination, and his Goku uniform shifted instantly, metal plates unfolding and locking into place. His armor turned primarily white with sharp green details lining the edges, and 6 spikes protruded from the abdomen area, flaring outward. With a powerful declaration, 𝐮𝐬𝐽 activated his armor, and the arena shook from the sudden surge of power. Wind whipped around him as his upgraded uniform stabilized, the blade on his arm pulsing with energy. Raiden watched with mild interest, electricity still dancing lazily across his shoulders. He acknowledged the impressive display but challenged 𝐮𝐬𝐽 to show him if it was worth his time. 𝐮𝐬𝐽 pointed the blade arm toward him, eyes narrowed, and insisted it would be. Raiden smirked, lifting one hand as lightning coiled around his fingers, inviting 𝐮𝐬𝐽 to test his arrogance. The atmosphere thickened, the crowd holding its breath as the two forces prepared to collide. The arena fell silent as 𝐮𝐬𝐽's upgraded armor gleamed under the lights, his katana arm humming with energy. Raiden rolled his shoulders, lightning sparking around him as he prepared to advance. Then a voice echoed through his mind, reminding him never to underestimate anyone, as even the smallest could bite. Pride meant nothing if it blinded him. Raiden clicked his tongue, acknowledging the lesson he had heard countless times before. For a brief moment, he steadied his breathing, letting his ki settle in his core. His father's words were not a warning but a reminder to crush his opponents with clarity, not arrogance. The memory faded, and Raiden's expression shifted, still prideful, still confident, but now sharper and more focused. Before anyone could speak, Sanojayama launched forward, the ground cracking beneath his feet. His katana arms slashed downward with blinding speed, a shockwave rippling across the arena. Raiden remained still, raising one hand to catch the blade in his palm. Lightning exploded from the point of contact, arcing through the air and rattling the entire stadium. The audience gasped, some students flinching back at the raw force radiating from the clash. Sangiyama's eyes widened in disbelief as he realized Raiden had caught his attack. Raiden smirked, electricity racing up his arm like a serpent of blue fire, and acknowledged that he wouldn't underestimate Sangiyama, though he felt little impressed. With a single movement, Raiden tightened his grip, and a shockwave burst outward, knocking loose stones across the arena floor. Sangiyama gritted his teeth and pushed forward, but Raiden's strength remained unyielding. Raiden dismissed Sangiyama's efforts, stating that if this was his opening move, he was already finished. With a thunderous burst, he shoved Sangiyama backward, forcing the elite student to skid across the arena, carving a long trail in the stone. The crowd erupted, the clash resembling a storm striking the battlefield. Raiden stood firm, lightning swirling around him like a cloak, and challenged Sangiyama to rise, claiming that the fight had only just begun. Sangiyama steadied himself, his boots digging into the cracked arena floor. He lifted his katana arm again, eyes blazing with determination, ready to continue. Raiden's expression remained unchanged, but the air around him pulsed with energy. Lightning spiraled from his hands, gathering into a long, glowing shape. In seconds, the electricity condensed and hardened, forming a sleek, crackling staff of pure light. The weapon hummed with power, arcs of energy snapping off its edges like wild sparks. Raiden spun the staff once, leaving a streak of blue lightning in the air, and warned Sangiyama not to disappoint him. Sangiyama charged first, his blade slicing forward in a green streak. Raiden met him head-on, and their weapons collided with explosive force, lightning and energy clashing so violently that the arena lights flickered. The impact created a booming shockwave that swept across the stands. Sangiyama pushed forward, swinging his blade with rapid, precise strikes, while Raiden countered every hit with the lightning staff, each clash sending bolts of electricity dancing across the ground. Sangiyama noted Raiden's speed, while Raiden found Sangiyama's moves predictable. Raiden twisted his staff and slammed it downward, and Sangiyama blocked just in time, sparks flying between them as their weapons locked. For a moment, they were evenly matched, boots skidding across the stone as they struggled for depths. Sangiyama grinned, feeling exhilarated by the challenge, while Raiden smirked back, lightning intensifying around him, urging Sangiyama to keep up. As they clashed again and again, sparks and shockwaves ripped across the arena. Raiden's lightning staff whirled through the air like a streak of white-blue flame, each swing meeting Sangiyama's blade arm with a deafening clang. Sangiyama pushed forward, his footwork heavy and precise, declaring that Raiden would need to do better than that. He twisted his body, activating another burst from his MK3 uniform, and his speed spiked for an instant. Sangiyama slammed his blade into the staff center, and with a loud crack, the lightning staff was jolted loose from Raiden's grip, spinning high into the air and bursting into sparks before it even hit the ground. Before Raiden could react, Sangiyama followed through with a powerful roundhouse kick, sending Raiden flying across the arena. But before the crowd could gasp, lightning exploded beneath Raiden's feet, halting him midair as electricity wrapped around his arms and legs like glowing restraints. Raiden glared down at Sangiyama, unamused, acknowledging the impressive disarm but asserting that the fight was far from over. The ground beneath Sangiyama cracked from the pressure as Raiden fired downward, toward him like a living thunderbolt, announcing his next move with fervor. Kiriko leaned forward, eyes wide, while 𝐼𝐻 crossed his arms, observing the clash of lightning and steel below. Daigo snorted, shaking his head at Raiden's prideful nature, while Kiriko smirked, noting that Raiden's confidence was backed by his abilities. As the battle continued, Sangiyama weaved through Raiden's strikes with sharp, precise movements, his blade arms slicing through the air but never quite touching Raiden. Each dodge was smoother than the last, and Sangiyama taunted Raiden about his predictability. Raiden's eye twitched, and the air around him thickened, vibrating with pressure. His aura exploded outward, white-blue lightning crackling across his shoulders, arms, and legs as the ground beneath him split. Raiden challenged Sangiyama's perception of his attacks, stepping forward with electricity stabbing into the ground. He declared that he would show him a move he had never seen before. The sky darkened above them as Raiden powered up, pulling in so much energy that the arena lights flickered. Gamagori's eyes widened from the medical wing, realizing Raiden was raising his output beyond safe limits. In the stands, 𝐼𝐻𝐬's visor flashed red warnings, indicating that Raiden's lightning levels were reaching dangerous ranges. Kiriko swallowed hard, sensing the tension in the air as Raiden's lightning spiked violently, whipping the air into a frenzy. The arena lights dimmed as every bolt converged around his body, crawling up his arms, chest, and legs like electric veins. Raiden announced his signature technique with a thunderclap, his hair shooting upward, glowing with bright white-blue light as electricity surged through every strand. His eyes sharpened into a predatory focus, pupils glowing like twin sparks. The lightning no longer just surrounded him, it controlled him. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 shot up from his seat, recognizing the forbidden technique of the Barrett clan. Daigo's jaw dropped in disbelief as he realized Raiden was boosting every nerve and impulse, moving faster than his body should handle. Kiriko recalled Emma's warning about Raiden's hidden danger, realizing this was it. Down in the arena, Raiden's limbs twitched, not from instability, but from the overwhelming speed building up inside him. The electric aura around him condensed, tightening into a crackling shell, ready to unleash its power. Even standing still, he blurred. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's visor couldn't track him. He moved faster than the sensors could refresh. Sangiyama raised his blade defensively, narrowing his eyes. This was Raiden's trump card. He was ready for the challenge. Raiden vanished, and a sonic boom erupted a heartbeat later. He reappeared behind Sangiyama, then to the left, then above, then in front, each position lasting less than a blink before disappearing again, leaving streaks of lightning across the field. He taunted Sangiyama, urging him to predict his next move. The ground cracked beneath him as he lunged, a living thunderbolt aimed straight at Sangiyama's chest. A massive surge of lightning shaped itself around Raiden's arm, forming the outline of a snarling wolf made of pure electricity. Its fanged jaws snapped open as Raiden moved forward with incredible speed. The attack connected with a resounding impact. The electric wolf bit into Sangiyama's armor, the force echoing across the arena. Sparks and debris exploded outward as Sangiyama was sent flying backward, skidding across the ground, leaving deep gouges in his armor. The crowd erupted in excitement, with Kiriko expressing disbelief, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 acknowledging the skill, and Daigo noting the intensity of the strike. Down below, Sangiyama dug his blade arm into the arena floor, grinding to a stop as smoke curled off his chest plate. His armor flickered, several plates dented from the force. He exhaled sharply, acknowledging the pain. Despite the struggle, he looked up, sweat rolling down his temple, and admitted that the hit had hurt. Raiden hovered in the air, lightning crackling off him in wild arcs, his hair glowing bright and his expression cold. He challenged Sangiyama to predict his next move. Sangiyama dropped to one knee, armor smoking and sparks still dancing across the dents Raiden had inflicted. His blade arm flickered, but he managed to lift his head with a tired grin, accepting defeat. The referee raised a hand, ready to call the match, but Raiden didn't look satisfied. His Godspeed aura crackled around him, lightning twisting and snapping like an angry storm barely contained. His expression was not one of pride or triumph but annoyance. He tightened his fists, expressing his frustration with the outcome. Sangiyama, confused yet still smirking despite the pain, acknowledged that he had lost fairly. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐿, however, was not content with such an easy victory. He wanted 𝐼𝐮𝐽 to stand and fight back, not simply collapse. His tone reflected his dissatisfaction with the lack of challenge. In the stands, Kiriko leaned forward, recognizing 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐿's pride was at stake. Iroh noted that 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐿 didn't want an easy win, he wanted to face someone at their best. Daigo agreed, explaining that if 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐿 didn't feel challenged, he would become furious. Back in the arena, 𝐼𝐮𝐽 pushed himself higher on his knee, still smiling despite his injuries. He apologized for disappointing 𝐼𝐻𝐿, stating that a loss was a loss. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 glared, electricity flaring around him for a moment before dissipating. His Godspeed aura faded, and he warned 𝐼𝐮𝐽 not to fall so fast next time. 𝐼𝐮𝐽 laughed weakly, promising that next time, he would make 𝐼𝐻𝐿 work for it. The announcer declared 𝐼𝐻𝐿 the winner, but he did not raise a hand in celebration. His eyes were already searching for the next real challenge. As 𝐼𝐻𝐿 walked back toward his stand, the cheers from the arena felt distant and empty. Each step intensified the frustration boiling in his chest. The victory meant nothing to him, not like this, not with a single technique, and not with 𝐼𝐮𝐽 accepting defeat so easily. Upon reaching the shadow of the corridor, he drove his fist into the stone wall beside him, creating a massive dent and sending cracks spiderwebbing outward. His voice trembled with fury, not directed at 𝐼𝐮𝐽 or the crowd, but at himself. He felt that a fight like that wasn't worthy of him. He hadn't pushed 𝐼𝐮𝐽 or himself to their limits. Lightning crackled faintly around his shoulders as his anger continued to build. He questioned the point of such easy victories, clenching his fists and feeling the dissatisfaction burning in his eyes. He refused to win like a coward or a weakling. His strength deserved better. Daigo approached, teasing 𝐼𝐻𝐿 about his disappointment. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 turned sharply, irritation rising as he recognized Daigo, the so-called Shadow Imstar of the 𝐒𝐮𝐲 clan. Daigo smirked, stepping closer with his calm, predatory aura, suggesting that 𝐼𝐻𝐿 should be throwing a bigger tantrum after such a disappointing victory. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 narrowed his eyes, warning Daigo not to test him. Daigo, however, was not there for nonsense. He wanted to see if 𝐼𝐻𝐿 was finally cracking under his own ego. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 grit his teeth, his fists trembling, and warned Daigo to watch his mouth. Daigo shrugged casually, enjoying the moment. He mentioned that he was up next and intended to win against Ryuko Matoi, Raggio's second oldest daughter. He smirked before turning toward the arena, reminding 𝐼𝐻𝐿 not to fall behind, as it would be embarrassing if the Barrett prodigy couldn't keep up once Daigo joined the elite students. 𝐼𝐻𝐿 clicked his tongue in annoyance as Daigo walked away confidently, hands in his pockets, never looking back. In Daigo's thoughts, he relished the sight of 𝐼𝐻𝐿 losing his cool, recognizing that 𝐼𝐻𝐿's ego was always his downfall. Compared to Daigo, the Shadow Imstar of the 𝐒𝐮𝐲 clan, 𝐼𝐻𝐿 was still just a child swinging lightning around. In a flashback to Daigo's childhood at the 𝐒𝐮𝐲 temple, the air was cold and dim, shadows clinging to the walls. A young Daigo stood in the center of the training hall, barefoot and with his hair tied in a small knot. Even as a child, his eyes were sharp as he moved through martial forms with precision beyond his years. He practiced karate stances, jujitsu transitions, quick elbow strikes, and silent steps from taijutsu. Unlike other children, Daigo mixed his ki with his shadow quirk, causing black wisps to coil around his fists and legs, leaving dark afterimages with every strike and ripple with every step. Two elders observed him from across the hall, whispering about his unnatural control for a 6-year-old and noting that he was already merging ki with his shadows. That technique took his ancestors years to master. Standing beside him was a tall woman. With long white hair and eyes as sharp as blades, Kaguya 𝐒𝐮𝐲, clan leader and Daigo's mother. Kaguya watched Daigo without blinking, her expression unreadable. She noted that he was growing faster than she had expected. An elder remarked that at this rate he might surpass the previous Shadow Imstar. Kaguya narrowed her eyes, a faint smile appearing at the corner of her lips. Of course he would. He was her son. He reminded her of his father before he passed. Once Daigo grew stronger, they would show the Barrett clan, and every other clan, who truly stood at the top. The elders nodded silently, feeling the weight of her words. The shadows around the hall thickened as if responding to her confidence. 𝐾𝐽 believed Daigo was born to rule the shadows and to surpass every rival who dared to claim strength above him. As Daigo continued his training, the shadows bent and twisted with every strike. 𝐾𝐽 watched him, a slow, knowing smirk spreading across her face. Each movement he made, precise, ruthless, and perfectly controlled, only confirmed her beliefs. She encouraged him to keep going, to show them all the power he had inherited. Her eyes gleamed with pride and something sharper. One day, the clans would tremble at the name 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻, and Daigo would lead that fear. The elders exchanged uneasy glances, feeling the pressure rolling off her, an ambition sharp enough to cut through the room, as Daigo trained with fervor. 𝐾𝐽 stood with her arms folded, her pale eyes glowing faintly in the dim cavern. The air around her felt heavier than usual, as if even the shadows paused to listen. Daigo swallowed hard, standing at attention, fists clenched at his sides. 𝐾𝐽 informed him that his training until now had been physical, basic stances, strength, endurance. But today, he would begin learning what separated a warrior from a disaster waiting to happen. Daigo blinked, confused by her words. 𝐾𝐽 smirked, amused and dangerous. She explained that his power was real, and his potential was terrifying, but his control was lacking. With a snap of her fingers, a sudden burst of ki erupted behind him. He stumbled forward in surprise. 𝐾𝐽 sighed dramatically, confirming his mistake. She taught him that he should never trust what he saw but rather what he sensed. She instructed him to close his eyes. Daigo obeyed, and a moment later, a wave of ki pressure slammed into him, causing him to skid back. 𝐾𝐽 informed him that he was wrong. Another shockwave hit him from a different angle, and he braced himself, but it was too slow. A third wave came from overhead, and Daigo dropped to a knee, gritting his teeth. 𝐾𝐽 smirked, acknowledging his slight improvement but still deemed it wrong. Frustration burned in Daigo's chest as he wondered what he was missing. 𝐾𝐽 tapped his forehead, explaining that he was listening with his ears and feeling with his skin, but ki was sensed with the spirit. She lifted her hand, and a quiet, steady pulse of ki radiated from her palm, soft but unmistakable, like a heartbeat he hadn't realized he could hear. 𝐾𝐽 urged him to reach out and find it, advising him not to force his ki outward but to let it respond. Daigo inhaled, grounding himself, allowing his frustration to fade. Slowly, he felt something, a flicker, a vibration, a steady presence, calm yet vast, like a dark ocean waiting beneath the earth. 𝐾𝐽's expression softened slightly, acknowledging that he had found the beginning. When Daigo opened his eyes, he gasped, realizing he had felt it. 𝐾𝐽's smirk returned, sharper than before, as she announced that Lesson 2 was about to begin. In an instant, she vanished. Daigo barely had time to tense before a palm chopped toward his neck. This time, he sensed it and managed to block. 𝐾𝐽's grin widened, signaling that they could finally begin. Emerging from the tunnel, Daigo was met with the roar of the crowd washing over him like a wave. His expression remained calm and unreadable, his sharp 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻 eyes scanning the arena with practiced focus. In the center of the field stood Ryuko Matoi, hands on her hips, foot tapping impatiently. The faint red glow of Senketsu's eye flickered on her shoulder. She remarked on his tardiness, and Daigo stopped a few feet in front of her, tilting his head slightly in amusement. He teased her about being eager to lose, to which she scoffed, claiming to have fought tougher opponents than his ego. Daigo's mouth twitched upward, not quite a smirk but close, as he expressed his disdain for weak opponents. Senketsu chimed in, warning Ryuko that Daigo's energy signature was unusually dense, indicating he was not an ordinary fighter. Daigo cracked his knuckles, shadow energy flickering around his feet like black mist responding to his heartbeat. He confirmed that he was indeed not ordinary, he was 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻. Ryuko grinned, her excitement palpable, and urged him to show her what he had. Daigo slid into his stance, low, sharp, controlled. The tension in the arena was electric. Ryuko commanded him to get ready to lose, and Daigo grinned, shadows curling around his ankles like living ink. He prepared to unleash his technique, Shadow Step. The air shifted as his body blurred, not vanishing, not teleporting, just slipping between the light, like stepping into the cracks of reality itself. A faint echo of his silhouette lingered for half a second before dissolving completely. Ryuko's eyes widened, not in fear but in excitement, as she prepared to counter his move. Her grin widened, wild and electric. A flicker revealed Daigo appearing behind her. Ryuko pivoted instantly. The clash of their weapons rang out as her blade met his forearm, sparks flying in all directions. His shadow aura rippled like disturbed water. Daigo chuckled close to her ear, acknowledging her skill. She smirked, teeth flashing, and confidently stated that she was just getting warmed up. With a heavy swing, she forced him back. Daigo flipped once, landing in a crouch, shadows spreading out beneath him in a circle. He expressed his satisfaction, stating he would hate for the encounter to be boring. In an instant, Daigo shadow stepped again, faster this time. 3 afterimages split apart, rushing her from different angles. Ryuko slammed her foot down, anchoring her stance, her aura exploding upward like a flame. She challenged him to come at her. Her blade sliced through one afterimage, only to watch it dissolve into smoke. She cursed under her breath, realizing it was a fake. Daigo appeared above her mid-leap, diving with a spinning kick, shadows trailing behind him like a comet. Ryuko raised her blade just in time, the impact sending her sliding several feet backward. She laughed, feeling invigorated by the challenge. Daigo's shadow flickered again, his eyes glowing faintly as he encouraged her to keep up, revealing he was no longer holding back. Kiriko leaned forward, gripping the railing as the arena shook from their clash. He marveled at Daigo's intensity, while Yiro smirked, noting that Daigo loved to put on a show. Raiden, however, glared down at Daigo, unimpressed by his theatrics. Kiriko raised an eyebrow at Raiden's reaction, teasing him about his jealousy. Raiden dismissed her, stating that Daigo always fought like he was performing. Daigo, feeling the energy of the fight, complimented Ryuko, noting her strength. He suddenly crouched, muscles coiling like a spring, and launched himself high into the air. Shadows rippled beneath his feet from the force of the jump, spreading out in jagged patterns. Silhouetted against the arena. Lights, he moved both hands downward, his aura erupting with a mix of lightning and swirling darkness. He unleashed a barrage of shadow orbs that rained down toward Ryuko in a relentless assault. Ryuko narrowed her eyes, gripping her scissor blade tighter as she prepared for the incoming blasts. With a fierce shout, she crossed her twin blades and swung them in a spiraling arc, generating a shockwave of cutting wind. She declared that he wouldn't hit her that easily. The spinning slash collided with several of Daigo's shadow orbs, slicing them apart in bursts of dark energy. Smoke rippled outward, briefly covering the arena. Through the dust, Ryuko's silhouette emerged, her stance low, blades humming with power as she braced for the next wave. Before she could fully reset her stance, a sharp grin spread across Daigo's face. Behind her, a shadow clone stepped out of the lingering smoke, nearly identical but with glowing eyes. Without warning, the clone delivered a heavy kick into Ryuko's back, sending her stumbling forward. Daigo taunted her for not checking her blind spot. Ryuko steadied herself, but Daigo's clone was already on the attack, throwing rapid jabs of shadow energy. She countered with furious swings, sparks flying as her blades connected with the dark forms. The battle intensified as Ryuko parried Daigo's spinning slash while the clone dove in for a gut punch. She blocked with the flat of her blade and countered with a knee to the clone, while Daigo flipped over her with a shadow-boosted jump, landing behind her once more. He urged her not to slow down, and the clone echoed his sentiment, indicating they were just getting started. Ryuko gritted her teeth, surrounded but refusing to back down. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth, but she smirked defiantly, ready to show them how a real brawler fought. She planted her feet, blades low, and her aura surged, red energy crackling around her like wildfire. Daigo's expression shifted, sensing the change in her power. With a roar, Ryuko exploded forward in a burst of speed, vanishing from their sight for a brief moment. The clone swung blindly, but Ryuko appeared behind it, cleaving straight through its midsection, shattering it into smoke. Daigo barely had time to react before she was on him, slamming one blade down which he blocked, and swinging the other just narrowly missing him. She then spun her whole body and kicked him across the jaw, sending him skidding back. Daigo acknowledged her speed, while Ryuko stomped forward, dual blades raised, declaring she wasn't finished yet. She leaped high, twisting midair, and unleashed a powerful attack aimed at Daigo, the ground cracking from the force. The attack hit, but Daigo wasn't there. The blades struck the ground, sending debris flying, but only empty air remained. A low whisper echoed behind her as Daigo reappeared several feet away, relaxed and smug, teasing her about needing to catch him first. With a ripple of shadow beneath him, he prepared for his next move, declaring it time to end the games. Ki surged, the air crackling as he shaped it into a solid blade of dark energy, long and curved, humming with intent. Ryuko planted her feet, Senketsu's eyes flashing red. She lunged forward, both blades out, crossing in front of her as she rocketed straight at him. The arena shook as they exploded toward each other. Daigo sprinted low, his ki blade trailing shadows behind him. Ryuko charged high, her boots skidding sparks across the floor. The clash of their blades echoed through the arena, shockwaves blasting outward. Daigo snarled, determined to see whose resolve would break first. Ryuko pushed back with everything she had, her spirit unyielding. The clash became a blur of steel and shadow, blades flashing, feet sliding, sparks exploding with every impact. Both fighters refused to back down, swinging with full intent to win. The arena fell silent, and the dust settled in a ring around them. Ryuko and Daigo stood only a few feet apart, both breathing, both injured, both unwilling to drop. Ryuko adjusted her grip on her twin blades, her eyes blazing with fury and pride. She declared that it was time to finish this for real. Daigo's shadow flickered violently behind him, rising like a dragon made of smoke. His ki blade reformed, longer and sharper than before, crackling with dark energy. They lowered their stances, and the world seemed to pause. Even the wind stopped. Then, both fighters launched forward at the exact same moment, so fast that the arena tiles shattered beneath their feet. Ryuko's blades carved fiery arcs through the air, while Daigo's ki blade dragged a comet trail of shadows. Senketsu urged her to strike now. Ryuko swung with everything she had, a crossing X-slash glowing bright crimson, while Daigo twisted mid-dash, his shadows swirling around his blade. The final strikes collided in the center of the arena, creating a massive eruption of energy that sent shockwaves roaring across the stands. For a moment, no one could see who had won. Then the explosion faded, and dust drifted down like snow. Two silhouettes stood in the smoke. One slowly knelt, while the other barely stayed on their feet, trembling from the effort of the final blow. The crowd leaned forward, breath held, as the final exchange was decided. As the dust cleared, Ryuko stood for a moment, shaking, stubborn, refusing to fall. Daigo's shadow flickered behind him like a massive winged beast, helping him remain upright. His ki blade dissolved into smoke, but the aura around him still radiated power. Ryuko took a step forward, then another, but her knees buckled. She dropped to one knee, her blades stabbing into the ground to keep from collapsing entirely. Even then, she refused to bow her head. Daigo exhaled a long, tired breath and wiped blood from the corner of his mouth with a smirk, claiming victory. Ryuko tried to push herself up again, gritting her teeth, but her legs gave out. Daigo walked past her slowly, each step echoing through the broken arena floor. He stopped beside her, not mocking, just acknowledging the fight. He glanced down and noted that she hit hard, harder than most, but not harder than him. Ryuko scoffed, forcing a dry laugh despite the pain, and he acknowledged her toughness. He mentioned that she fought like she actually cared about winning, and pride slipped through her fatigue. The crowd roared around them while Daigo soaked in his victory. He guided Ryuko toward the medical area, her steps stubborn but shaky. She insisted she could regenerate, explaining her quirk called Life Fiber, which came in handy when facing tough battles. Daigo, impressed despite himself, shared that his quirk was called Shadow Manipulation, involving shadows, clones, and vanishing tricks. Ryuko rolled her shoulders, feeling her strength return, and they exchanged playful banter about their fighting styles. As they made their way back toward their respective stands, the crowd still buzzing from the fight, Daigo spotted Kiriko stepping out from the hallway. She was already in her warm-up stance, stretching her arms with a focused but anxious look. He slowed down as they crossed paths, teasing her about feeling nervous. Kiriko puffed out her cheeks in annoyance, but her fidgeting fingers gave her away. She insisted she was going out there to win, though she admitted to feeling a little nervous about the possibilities ahead. Winning, losing, making mistakes, and winning again, what a CYC. Daigo observed Kiriko, shaking his head with a smirk. He reassured her, reminding her to relax and that she was the Genji clan's cherry blossom, a title she should hold on to. Kiriko paused, blinking at him before a small, genuine smile appeared, one she reserved for moments when she needed to appear tougher than she felt. She jogged past him toward the arena entrance, her pink aura flaring as her confidence began to catch up with her nerves. Daigo watched her go, arms folded, thinking about whether the cherry blossom would thrive under pressure. As Kiriko approached the arena, her steps were steady, but her heart raced. A quiet thought crossed her mind, recalling the nickname that had always been with her since 𝐼𝐴. Her vision blurred momentarily as a warm memory surfaced, soft, warm, and pink like drifting petals. In the Genji temple courtyard, sunlight filtered through ancient trees, creating a peaceful atmosphere. 5-year-old Kiriko laughed as she chased other children, her tiny hands glowing with faint sparks of pink flame that swirled around her like playful butterflies. The other kids watched in awe, marveling at her abilities. One exclaimed how appealing she looked, like a real cherry blossom princess. Kiriko giggled, spinning in circles as soft petals of flame drifted from her fingertips. Nearby, 3 Genji clan elders observed her with serious expressions, filled with pride. They noted how her quirk manifested at a younger age than any before her, calling it cherry blossom flames, a rare and symbolic gift representing the spirit of their clan's founder. They acknowledged that every generation has a prodigy, but none had shone this brightly at such a young age. One elder stroked his beard thoughtfully, affirming that the title suited her well. Kiriko stopped dancing, gazing at the drifting petals her flames created. She didn't fully grasp the significance of their words, only that they filled her with warmth. Whispering to herself, she embraced her identity as the cherry blossom flame. Returning to the present, Kiriko stepped into the arena, her pink aura shimmering. She recognized that the name was not just a title, it was something she needed to live up to. Clenching her fists, determination ignited within her as she resolved to bloom. Meanwhile, in the medical wing, Izuku, Emma, Gamagori, and Nanon sat together in the high-tech recovery room, their attention fixed on the TV. The live feed displayed Kiriko entering the arena, her pink flames beginning to shimmer. Nanon leaned forward, still wrapped in bandages, feeling frustrated about being stuck in bed while Kiriko took the spotlight. Gamagori chuckled, acknowledging Nanon's impressive fight against Emma, encouraging her to take pride in her performance. Emma, with a tired but confident smile, agreed, recalling the impact of Nanon's encore blast. Izuku, seated at the edge of his bed with a blanket around him, focused intently on the screen. His thoughts raced, reflecting on the incredible clan fights he had witnessed. Raiden and Daigo had pushed their limits, and the arena felt electrified. Emma's speed and precision during her fight impressed him, as did Nanon's ability to hold her own against the odds. He admired the strength each of them possessed and aspired to reach that level himself. Gamagori observed Kiriko's intensifying flames, intrigued by her unique quirk. Nanon scoffed but remained glued to the TV, skeptical about Kiriko's ability to live up to her nickname. Emma, however, defended Kiriko, asserting that she had the strength to back it up. As the fight countdown began, tension filled the room, and Izuku silently urged Kiriko to show her true potential. Nanon, curious about Emma's relationship with Kiriko, inquired if they were friends. Emma's expression softened as she revealed that Kiriko was her only real friend, sharing her struggles with her quirk and the burden of being a twin. Nanon's usual sass faded, replaced by a rare moment of empathy. Izuku listened intently, recognizing the weight Emma carried alone. 𝐼𝐻𝐬, usually thunderous in speech, spoke gently, affirming that no family should make someone feel like a burden. Emma acknowledged the truth in his words, though she struggled to accept it. Nanon reassured her that they were all in this together, emphasizing that they wouldn't abandon her. Emma blinked, a small but genuine smile forming on her face. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 noted the shift in Emma's demeanor as she processed the acknowledgement from Lady 𝗟𝐼𝐻𝐬, a rare honor. Emma felt a warmth growing within her, realizing she was not alone in her struggles. Nanon playfully threatened to defend her against anyone who doubted her worth, bringing a light-hearted moment to the group. Izuku laughed softly, feeling a sense of camaraderie among them. As they all watched the screen, Izuku remained focused, legs bouncing slightly with anticipation, ready to witness Kiriko's moment to shine. Even Emma noticed the tension in the air. She leaned in slightly, her voice gentle as she observed Izuku's focused gaze on the monitor. He seemed captivated by the unfolding battles. Izuku nodded, his eyes fixed on the screen as Kiriko stepped into the arena. He expressed his thoughts, noting that each clan member's battle was more than just a fight, they were stories. Kiriko, in particular, felt different to him, as if her power carried an ancient weight. Nanon, with a playful grin, nudged Izuku's shoulder and teased him about being a nerd, admitting that she felt the same excitement for Kiriko's upcoming performance. 𝐼𝐻𝐬, arms crossed, continued to watch Izuku, noticing a quiet determination behind his eyes. He cautioned Izuku not to let his focus become overwhelming pressure, reminding him that he had also passed the trials. Izuku responded with a small smile, expressing his longing to see how far everyone could push their limits. As the arena lights dimmed on the screen, signaling the start of Kiriko's match, the room fell silent. Everyone leaned forward in anticipation. Emma whispered a quiet encouragement, hoping for Kiriko's success. The screen lit up as Kiriko activated her quirk, and cherry blossom flames began to swirl around her. Moments earlier, Kiriko stepped into the arena, feeling the heat of the spotlights on her cheeks and the crowd's roar enveloping her. Her cherry blossom flames flickered gently, responding to her heartbeat. Then she spotted her opponent, a young girl standing confidently at the opposite end of the arena. The girl had long blonde hair styled into perfect pigtails, giving her an almost doll-like appearance. Her piercing sapphire blue eyes sparkled with mischief, but her smile did not reach them. Dressed in an extravagant pink Lolita-style dress adorned with lace and frills, she held a parasol delicately in one hand. A large pink bow sat atop her head, and a purple eye patch with a heart insignia covered her right eye. Hearts decorated her attire, creating a motif of sweetness that contrasted sharply with the aura she exuded. Kiriko thought to herself that she was facing one of those cute but deadly types. The girl tapped her parasol against the stage floor and curtsied, her demeanor sweet yet mocking. She complimented Kiriko's hair color, likening it to cherry blossoms, to which Kiriko responded with a compliment of her own, questioning the eye patch and the absence of a weapon. The girl, Nui, revealed that Kiriko reminded her of someone special, and Kiriko retorted that Nui resembled a doll she once owned. Nui's demeanor shifted, a visible tick mark appearing on her forehead as she processed Kiriko's words. With a twirl, she swung her massive scissor blade in a sharp arc, declaring her intention to be a doll tired of tea parties. Kiriko's cherry blossom flames ignited around her, reacting to the tension in the air. In the stands, Ryuko returned to her seat, stretching her shoulder after a tough match. She asked what she had missed, and Meiko excitedly shared that Kiriko had just made another honest remark. Satsuki noted that Kiriko's bluntness was comparable to Mako's, while Ryuko expressed concern for Nui's well-being in this match. Satsuki reassured her, stating that Nui was powerful but had a tendency to lose control. As the match began, Kiriko exhaled softly, summoning tiny cherry blossoms made of shimmering pink flame that drifted around her, initially appearing harmless. Nui, intrigued, admired the beauty of the blossoms, but the petals suddenly shifted, igniting and surging toward her like flaming projectiles. Nui dodged, her parasol spinning to block several incoming petals, realizing that these were not just sparkles but actual flames. Kiriko stepped forward, her flames spiraling around her arms, and warned 𝐼𝐸 that dolls could break easily. The arena erupted with heat as more flaming petals formed a storm around 𝐼𝐸. 𝐼𝐸's expression shifted to one of excitement, and 𝐼𝐸 prepared for her next move, declaring her signature attack. Before 𝐼𝐸 could react, 𝐼𝐸 vanished in a burst of cherry blossom sparks, reappearing above her with a blazing fist ready to strike. 𝐼𝐸's eyes widened in surprise as 𝐼𝐸 descended like a meteor, her fist colliding with 𝐼𝐸's parasol and sending a shockwave across the arena. The impact scattered petals like burning confetti, and 𝐼𝐸 staggered back, her parasol slightly scorched. 𝐼𝐸, with a twitching smile, lamented the damage to her expensive parasol, while 𝐼𝐸 landed gracefully, flames curling around her legs. The atmosphere grew tense as 𝐼𝐸's cheerful demeanor shifted into something more dangerous. Both girls locked eyes, ready for the next explosive clash, as 𝐼𝐸 twirled her parasol, summoning strings of living thread that spiraled around her like playful snakes. The battle was far from over, and the arena buzzed with anticipation for what was to come. 𝐼𝐸 giggled as 10 figures emerged from her back, 10 perfect clones, each crafted from dense, glowing strings. Their bodies formed midair like dolls being assembled, all dressed in the same frilly attire and wearing mischievous smiles. The clones hovered behind her, their string bodies stretching and contracting unnaturally, like puppets awaiting a command. 𝐼𝐸 cheerfully instructed them to be good little dolls and take down their opponent. In the stands, Ryuko stiffened, realizing the seriousness of the situation. Meiko leaned forward, amazed by the sight of 10 𝐼𝐸 clones. Satsuki's analytical gaze narrowed as she recognized the reinforced clones, stronger, faster, and coordinated. 𝐼𝐸 would need more than just speed to get through them. Inumuta typed rapidly, noting the increased thread density of the clones, indicating that one hit could be devastating. Raggio observed quietly, intrigued by the unfolding battle. Back in the arena, the 10 𝐸 clones swarmed 𝐼𝐸 from all angles, moving with deadly precision. 𝐼𝐸's flames flickered around her fists as she prepared for the onslaught, acknowledging the challenge ahead. The clones closed in, their movements almost playful, the air thick with tension. 𝐼𝐸 noted how identical the clones were to the original, same dress, same eyes, same unsettling smile. She realized that these were not mere copies, they were reinforced versions. As one clone flicked its arm, a razor-thin thread sliced through the air near her head, confirming their speed and danger. 𝐼𝐸's flames pulsed hotter in response to her rising heartbeat, and she resolved to take them down. With the clones forming a perfect circle around her, the real 𝐸 giggled sweetly, taunting 𝐼𝐸 about her nervousness. 𝐼𝐸's flames ignited brighter, and she prepared for the fight. With a flick of her wrists, the cherry blossom flames around her erupted into motion, sending dozens of burning petals spiraling toward the clones like a scorching tidal wave. The petals sliced through the air, igniting the clones upon impact. One clone dissolved into coils of smoking thread, while another stumbled back, its dress engulfed in flames. The remaining clones struggled to shake off the burning petals. Ryuko and Meiko cheered from the stands, impressed by 𝐼𝐸's fiery display, while Satsuki noted her strategic use of wide-range suppression to reduce 𝐸's numbers. As 𝐼𝐸 focused on the real 𝐸 through the haze of flames, she realized she needed to break the formation. However, the remaining clones steadied themselves, their strings tightening. 𝐸 twirled her parasol, her smile reflecting a mix of delight and challenge. She snapped her fingers, and the surviving clones leapt through the flames, undeterred by the heat. 𝐼𝐸 understood that these clones had been upgraded and could withstand the fire. As they lunged at her, she planted her foot firmly and called forth a powerful attack. The ground beneath her pulsed, and a massive burst of pink flame erupted, spiraling into the shape of a towering cherry blossom tree made of glowing fire. The arena lit up in a pink inferno, and the clones froze in shock. 𝐼𝐸's fiery creation unleashed its branches, sweeping down toward the clones and igniting them instantly. 𝐸 watched with glee as her clones were consumed by the cascading petals of flame. 𝐼𝐸 raised her hands, and the flaming tree detonated, sending a shock wave of cherry blossom embers outward, engulfing the last of the clones in radiant pink fire. The crowd erupted in cheers as Kiriko stood at the center of the cratered arena, flames swirling around her like a blooming storm. However, across the smoke, Nui stepped forward, her singed dress and messy hair not diminishing her carnival-like smile. She lifted her scissor blade, the air thickening with tension. With a manic bounce, Nui darted forward, moving with a sharp, puppet-like precision. Kiriko barely had time to react as Nui slashed down with her oversized blade. Kiriko ignited her palm, using a flame-propelled jump to evade the attack, the blade grazing her shoulder. The arena floor cracked where the blade struck. Ryuko warned Kiriko to be cautious, while Satsuki advised her to observe Nui's footwork, noting that she danced around her opponents. Nui giggled as she pursued Kiriko, twirling her blade with excitement. Kiriko steadied herself, flames gathering around her fists, ready to engage. As Nui lunged with a sharp slash, Kiriko sidestepped smoothly, her cherry-pink flames flickering as she moved. With each failed attack from Nui, Kiriko countered with agility, flames trailing behind her like petals in the wind. In the stands, Ryuko marveled at Kiriko's speed, while Inamuta calculated her increased reaction time. Kiriko was determined to prove herself, ready to face Nui's challenge head-on. Nui's grin sharpened as she prepared for the next round. She challenged Kiriko to a dance, promising to show her the real tempo. In a flash, Kiriko vanished, leaving only a trail of blossoms behind. She reappeared right behind Nui, flames igniting around her as she readied her next move. Nui staggered back from the impact, brushing the scorch mark on her cheek. Her smile remained sweet and playful, but a dangerous glint flickered beneath the surface. She acknowledged the hit, realizing it had hurt more than she expected. With a determined leap backward, she landed lightly and snapped her fingers, unleashing threads that unraveled from her fingertips like living wires. In the stands, Ryuko's eyes widened in alarm, realizing Nui was about to use a powerful technique. Satsuki commented on her sister's recklessness, noting that the move consumed stamina rapidly and was a high-risk endeavor. Mako leaned forward, her excitement palpable, anticipating the chaos that was about to unfold. On the arena floor, threads erupted from Nui's back, spiraling around her in a vibrant display. They wove together, forming a shimmering sphere of razor-thin threads that buzzed with energy. Nui raised her arms, giggling with wild excitement, and declared that Kiriko should feel honored to witness this rare spectacle. The sphere expanded, distorting the air around it as Nui announced the activation of her string domain expansion. Inside the newly formed dome, Kiriko felt the pressure of the threads closing in around her. Nui's laughter echoed unnaturally, heightening the tension. Kiriko realized that one wrong move could lead to disaster. As the ground beneath her pulsed, threads coiled upward like roots, and suddenly, dozens of strong clones emerged from the floor, stitched together from tightly woven string, each one wearing Nui's signature smile and giggling in unison. Kiriko's eyes widened in disbelief, recognizing the overwhelming number of clones that surrounded her. Nui gleefully suggested they turn the duel into a lovely spectacle of threads and petals as the clones lunged toward Kiriko. The pressure from Nui's string domain weighed heavily on her, and Kiriko knew she had no choice but to unleash her ultimate move. Dropping into a low stance, she opened her hands, and petals swirled around her like a pink hurricane. The temperature surged as her flames transformed from soft cherry pink to a blinding rose gold. The ground trembled beneath her as each petal spun faster, forming a giant lotus-shaped vortex around her fists, appealing yet brimming with destructive power. Nui's eyes sparkled with curiosity as she watched Kiriko prepare something special. With a powerful slam of her palms together, Kiriko unleashed her Cherry Empress Blast. A massive surge of pink flame erupted outward, petals shooting forth like molten projectiles. The blast tore through the domain, obliterating every string clone in its path, unraveling them into threads that burned away instantly. The shockwave continued to expand, shaking the entire string sphere, causing cracks to spiderweb across its surface. In the stands, Mako exclaimed in awe at the display of power, while Ryuko recognized the significance of Kiriko's move as a declaration of war. Satsuki noted the impressive nature of the attack, realizing it forced Nui to take the fight seriously. As the explosion faded, Kiriko stood breathing, surrounded by drifting glowing petals, having unleashed the full force of her Cherry Empress blast. Nui's clones were the first to be affected, unraveling into burning threads as the shockwaves surged through the domain. The cracks spread until the entire string sphere shattered like glass. Kiriko dropped to one knee, her chest heaving as pink flames flickered weakly around her arms. Sweat trickled down her forehead, and her petals faded into faint embers. Across from her, Nui staggered, barely able to remain upright, her dress burned and torn, and her hair frayed. Both fighters breathed heavily, staring at each other, having poured every last ounce of energy into their attacks. Nui's voice trembled with a mix of exhaustion and excitement as she acknowledged the fight's intensity. Kiriko, still catching her breath, recognized Nui's strength. In the stands, Ryuko leaned forward, realizing that the fight might end in a double knockout. Meiko expressed her exhilaration, unable to contain her excitement. Satsuki observed with a calm demeanor, knowing that the next few seconds would determine the outcome. A gentle breeze swept across the arena as the two exhausted combatants struggled to stay upright. Nui let out a final shaky giggle before collapsing onto the arena floor, unconscious before she hit the ground. Kiriko, barely standing, straightened up with her remaining strength, her flames extinguishing completely, leaving only drifting ember petals around her. She expressed her gratitude for the incredible fight, her voice tired yet sincere. In the VIP stand, Raggio rose gracefully, announcing Kiriko's victory to the crowd. The arena erupted in cheers, the audience stunned by the intensity of the clash. Ryuko released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding, while Meiko celebrated Kiriko's win with enthusiasm. Satsuki acknowledged Kiriko's decisive victory and impressive control. In the medical wing, Izuku smiled softly, proud of Kiriko's achievement. Finally, Kiriko exhaled in relief, her legs giving out as she collapsed backward, completely spent. Healers rushed to assist both her and Nui as the arena continued to cheer. The next and final fight was set to feature Iro, and anticipation filled the air. Even as Iro moved slowly, his thoughts drifted to the familiar lecture the clan elders always delivered. He was too laid back, lacked discipline, and treated every battle like a game. They warned him that he would never surpass the Akashiro lineage at this rate. He clicked his tongue lightly, finding it amusing that despite their concerns, he was still the one winning. Flashback, Iro age 6, Akashiro Temple. The warm afternoon sun bathed the tiled roof of the Akashiro Temple, with cicadas humming lazily in the background. A small figure lay sprawled across the highest peak, arms behind his head, fast asleep and carefree. A sharp voice echoed through the courtyard below, calling out for him. His mother, 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻 Akashiro, stood with her arms crossed, her golden eyes glowing with a mix of annoyance and concern. 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻 was an elegant woman with an otherworldly presence. Her glowing golden eyes, bright and sharp like polished amber, gave her a regal, almost mystical aura that hinted at immense inner power. Her long, flowing purple hair cascaded around her face in soft waves, with a few loose strands drifting gracefully across her cheeks. The deep violet color contrasted beautifully with the warm glow of her eyes, creating an enchanting look. Her expression was calm and contemplative, yet there was a quiet intensity beneath it. She carried herself with the wisdom of someone who had weathered many storms. Her pale skin caught the soft pink light of the cherry blossoms surrounding her, and she wore a traditional white kimono that highlighted her status as a respected figure within the Akashiro clan. Iro slid down the tiles with practiced ease, landing softly. He acknowledged his mother, who sighed, not in anger, but in exasperation. She brushed dust off his kimono sleeve and reminded him that he couldn't keep napping whenever training became difficult. As an Akashiro, he needed to learn discipline. Iro pouted, expressing his boredom with training, but a tiny smile tugged at 𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻's lips despite herself. She encouraged him, saying that one day he would be stronger than all of them if he stopped falling asleep everywhere. Iro grinned back at her, playfully refusing to make any promises. With a gentle flick to his forehead, 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐻𝐬 urged him to follow her, as 𝗟𝗏𝐻𝐬 was waiting. They walked across the temple grounds, sunlight filtering through the falling leaves, with 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 swinging her hand playfully, unaware that these peaceful moments would one day become cherished memories. Later that evening, inner hall of the 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐬 temple, the lanterns cast long shadows across the carved wooden floor as 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 knelt before the 4 elders seated in a semicircle. Their robes were old, their expressions stern, and their presence heavy with tradition. The first elder spoke with a deep, commanding voice, bringing attention to 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬's potential but also his lack of focus and discipline. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 maintained her composure, calmly asserting that 𝐒𝐮𝐬 was only 6 and that discipline would come with time. The third elder shook his head, emphasizing that the 𝐼𝐻𝐬 bloodline could not afford to waste time and that their successor must be shaped early for the clan's future. The fourth elder noted 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬's growing aura, suggesting that they all sensed the power awakening within him. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 acknowledged this but insisted that forcing 𝐒𝐮𝐬 would not shape him, it would break him. She believed he learned through experience, not pressure. Some elders exchanged uncertain glances, with one cautioning that emotion could cloud judgment. With quiet resolve, 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 stated that 𝐒𝐮𝐬 would rise. Though he might appear carefree, the heart of an 𝐼𝐻𝐬 beat within him, and when his moment came, he would not shy away from it. The elders fell silent until the first elder finally agreed to trust her guidance for now, but they would observe 𝐒𝐮𝐬's development closely, as his progress would determine the clan's future. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 bowed respectfully and left the hall, the heavy expectations of the elders lingering in the air. A small smile grew on her lips because she understood her son better than anyone and knew that beneath his lazy demeanor was a storm waiting to awaken. Outside the inner hall, 𝐒𝐮𝐬's prospective 𝐒𝐮𝐬 hadn't intended to be there. He had been on his way to sneak out for a nap when he heard his name echo through the hall. The elders' voices were sharper this time, and he pressed himself against the wooden wall to listen. They discussed his talent but lamented his relaxed nature. The third elder warned that if he did not improve, the 𝐼𝐻𝐬 lineage might weaken. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 didn't grasp everything, but he understood enough to know they were not impressed. Quietly, he backed away, his heart racing, and made his way to the rooftop, the only place that felt safe. Rooftop. Moments later, the breeze brushed through his hair as he lay back, staring up at the sky. Clouds drifted lazily, and the elders' voices replayed in his mind. Was he really that bad? Was being carefree so wrong? The tiles creaked behind him, and he didn't bother sitting up, recognizing his mother's presence. 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐬 joined him, her warmth steady like the afternoon sun. She confirmed that she had heard the elders' conversation. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 questioned whether they were right about him not being good enough. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 paused, then leaned back to look at him, explaining that being laid back wasn't a weakness unless it prevented growth. He turned his head slightly toward her, expressing his concern about being seen as a disappointment. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 laughed softly, reminding him that the elders thought many things, some wise, some less so, but they did not determine his worth. He did. She reassured him that he had a strong heart and strong ki. When a real challenge presented itself, she believed he wouldn't lie down and nap through it. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 couldn't help but snort at her confidence. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 stood, offering her hand to help him up. She reminded him that since he had skipped training again, she would double his drills the next day. His eyes widened in horror at the thought. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 expressed her disapproval, reminding her child not to sleep on the roof next time. Despite the dramatic groan that followed her departure, a small smile lingered on the child's face. Even when the elders doubted their abilities, their mother never did. As the child arrived at the arena, they spotted their opponent, a young girl with brown eyes and a bowl-cut hairstyle. The girl wore a 2-star Goku uniform, a black, bancho-style overcoat adorned with red spikes on the shoulders and cuffs, 2 red 4-pointed stars on her belt, and a black cap featuring a golden crescent moon. The uniform was designed to grant Mako superhuman strength and speed, allowing her to pull various weapons from her coat, including spiked chains and a nail bat. Mako bounced on her toes, full of chaotic energy, waving her arms as if trying to take flight. Mako was eager, fueled by her mother's delicious croquettes, and ready to give her all in the match. 𝐒𝐮𝐬 raised an eyebrow, unfazed by her enthusiasm, and expressed his hope that she wouldn't disappoint him. He stepped onto the arena floor, the atmosphere shifting around him as he settled into a calm demeanor. Despite his relaxed expression, a focused gleam shone in his eyes. 𝐼𝐼𝐬 reflected on his situation, noting that, like Emma, he didn't possess a quirk. However, he had heavenly ki, which sharpened all his senses beyond those of anyone else present. He could feel every movement, breath, and energy shift in the arena. Glancing at the stands, he sensed the curiosity of the other clan heirs, wondering how he managed to keep up without a quirk. The answer was simple: he didn't need one. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 stretched energetically, nearly losing her balance, and declared that holding back wouldn't save 𝐼𝐬𝐬. She was determined to fight with everything she had, invoking the Menkenshoku style. 𝐼𝐬𝐬 exhaled softly, rolling his shoulders, and acknowledged that he felt the same way. The aura surrounding him flickered, calm, heavenly, and dangerously controlled, as the final match was about to begin. 𝐼𝐬𝐬 complimented 𝐼𝐬𝐽 on her energy and vibe, finding her enthusiasm refreshing. 𝐼𝐬𝐽, grinning widely, reciprocated the compliment, likening him to a cool monk from an old martial arts movie. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 chuckled softly, appreciating the sentiment. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 urged him not to get shy before their match, and 𝐼𝐬𝐽 playfully insisted he was just trying not to blind her with his quirk. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 challenged him to bring it on, confident in her abilities. As the signal to start the match sounded, both fighters dashed toward each other, closing the distance in an instant. Their feet cracked against the ground, sending dust flying as they threw their first punches simultaneously. 𝐼𝐬𝐽's fist sliced through the air with precision, guided by his heightened senses and trained control, while 𝐼𝐬𝐽's punch came in like a rocket, fueled by adrenaline and determination. Their knuckles collided, creating a shockwave that rippled between them. They continued to trade blows at close range, 𝐼𝐬𝐽 fighting with explosive strength while 𝐼𝐬𝐽 weaved between her strikes with fluid, monk-like motions honed from his heavenly ki training. To the spectators, it appeared less like a spar and more like a clash of two worlds colliding in perfect harmony. In the stands, Daigo noted that 𝐼𝐬𝐽 was surprisingly impressive for a slacker, prompting Raiden to observe silently, arms crossed, as he focused on the arena. Daigo teased Raiden about his easy victory against Sangayama, to which Raiden admitted that 𝐼𝐬𝐽 was indeed impressive this time. His eyes remained locked on 𝐼𝐬𝐽, analyzing every move and shift in stance. Daigo smirked, suggesting that Raiden wanted to punch 𝐼𝐬𝐽 after the match. Meanwhile, in the VIP stands, Ryuko was surprised by 𝐼𝐬𝐽's effectiveness in combat, leaning forward as he skillfully dodged 𝐼𝐬𝐽's rapid punches. Inamuda noted 𝐼𝐬𝐽's impressive parrying skills, suggesting that he seemed to read 𝐼𝐬𝐽's movements before she committed to them. He adjusted his glasses, analyzing the data. Ryuko remarked that 𝐼𝐬𝐽's combination of strength and laziness was remarkable, while Satsuki corrected her, emphasizing that it was discipline and efficiency that defined the Akashiro style. Ryuko countered that 𝐼𝐬𝐽 was surprising her more than 𝐼𝐬𝐽 that day. As both 𝐼𝐬𝐽 and 𝐼𝐬𝐽 took a moment to catch their breath, 𝐼𝐬𝐽 stood casually, hands relaxed at his sides, while 𝐼𝐬𝐽 breathed heavily, sweat trickling down her forehead. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 acknowledged 𝐼𝐬𝐽's incredible skill, feeling as though he barely exerted himself. She shook out her arms, determined to revitalize her energy. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 recognized her spirit and encouraged her to keep going, inviting her to show him the rest of her energy. 𝐼𝐬𝐽's eyes sparkled with renewed determination as she launched herself forward with a battle cry. The two rushed at each other again, the air crackling from the force of their movements. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 swung first, wild and fast, but 𝐼𝐬𝐽 slipped past her strike effortlessly, countering with a precise palm that 𝐼𝐬𝐽 barely blocked. The impact sent her skidding back a few feet. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 exclaimed that 𝐼𝐬𝐽's hands felt like being hit by a truck wearing silk gloves, while 𝐼𝐬𝐽 complimented her stamina. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 attempted a sweeping kick, but 𝐬𝐽 hopped over it, flipping forward to tag her shoulder. 𝐼𝐬𝐽 ducked and retaliated with a double fist punch aimed at his face, but 𝐬𝐽 deflected both blows with minimal movement, redirecting her momentum. 𝐬𝐽 noted that 𝐻𝐽's fighting style was chaotic yet honest, and he appreciated it. 𝐻𝐽 launched herself backward, rebounding off the ground and calling out her special move, becoming a blur of punches. 𝐬𝐽 met her head-on, his heightened senses guiding him through every angle and shift. Their fists collided with a resounding boom, creating a shockwave that reverberated across the arena. Both fighters were pushed back, sliding across the ground. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 was breathing heavily but smiling brightly, while 𝐼𝐻𝐬 brushed dust off his shoulder, still calm. The excitement in the arena was palpable as 𝐼𝐻𝐽 cracked her knuckles, ready for the next round. With a gleam of determination in her eyes, she charged at 𝐼𝐻𝐬, fists glowing with energy. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 skillfully dodged her swing, pivoting to grab her sleeve just long enough to use her momentum, flipping her over his shoulder. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 yelped as she was sent flying but quickly planted her hands on the ground midair, flipping and landing in a crouch. She was amazed at 𝐼𝐻𝐬's smooth moves and couldn't help but wonder how he was so agile. Before she could fully rise, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 vanished in a blur of speed, reappearing behind her, close enough for his breath to brush against her shoulder. He prepared his next move, announcing it with confidence. His fist snapped forward, delivering a punch that landed with a solid thud, followed by a delayed burst of energy that sent 𝐼𝐻𝐽 tumbling across the arena, dust exploding behind her. The spectators gasped in disbelief at the power of his attack. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 skidded to a stop, dizzy but grinning widely. She was exhilarated by the challenge and ready to respond. With a determined look, she reached into her uniform pockets and pulled out 4 rice balls, as if she had been saving them for this moment. She devoured them in seconds, her cheeks puffing out like a chipmunk. The ground trembled as a surge of golden energy erupted around her, swirling like a tiny cyclone. The audience recognized her quirk, food-to-energy conversion. The more she consumed, the stronger she became. 𝐼𝐻𝐽's aura exploded outward, her hair lifting from the force as she declared herself supercharged and ready to rumble. She slammed her fists together, creating a shockwave that rippled across the arena. 𝐼𝐻𝐬, impressed despite himself, acknowledged her true power and encouraged her to show him everything she had. With a wild grin, 𝐼𝐻𝐽 bounced on her toes, preparing for her next move. She rocketed toward him, a blur of pink and gold, her aura crackling with energy. As she charged, she unleashed a flurry of rapid-fire punches, each strike landing with the force of a cannon. Her fists moved so quickly they left afterimages, creating a storm of 𝐼𝐻𝐽 figures around 𝐼𝐻𝐬. He braced himself, blocking the first few hits, but the weight of each blow increased. 𝐼𝐻𝐽's final punch sent a shockwave rippling across the arena, and she announced her finishing move with enthusiasm. The impact slammed into 𝐼𝐻𝐬's guard with tremendous force, sending him skidding backward across the arena floor. Despite his heightened senses and reinforced stance, he was overwhelmed by her strength. He stopped just before the edge, exhaling sharply, feeling the lingering shock in his arms, but a grin spread across his face as he acknowledged her incredible skill. 𝐼𝐻𝐽, still glowing with energy, beamed back at him, proud of her high-calorie haymaker. 𝐼𝐻𝐬, loosening his shoulders, revealed that he had been secretly working on a new move. The audience was captivated, eager to see what he had in store. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 inhaled deeply, his relaxed posture shifting into something precise and focused, the air around him charged with energy. In an instant, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 vanished, and a thunderous crack echoed as he reappeared right in front of 𝐼𝐻𝐽, his fist driving forward with perfect timing. The impact was swift and powerful, sending 𝐼𝐻𝐽 spinning through the air before she skidded across the arena floor, still conscious but struggling to regain her balance. The crowd erupted in cheers, astonished by 𝐼𝐻𝐽's execution of the Black Flash. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 hit the ground hard but instinctively rolled to her feet, determined to keep going. She felt the shockwave from the hit reverberate through her, and despite the pain, she refused to stay down. As she sat up, wobbling and dizzy, she marveled at the strength of 𝐼𝐻𝐽's attack, realizing he was on a completely different level than she had anticipated. With renewed determination, 𝐼𝐻𝐽 stood, ready to face whatever came next. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 tightened his stance, preparing to push his limits further. Both fighters were now fully aware of each other's capabilities, and the battle was far from over. If he's stepping it up, then I'll step up too. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 steadied herself, wiping the dust off her face as she dug into her pockets. Her grin returned, wide, fearless, and brimming with her usual chaotic enthusiasm. She thought to herself that 𝐼𝐻𝐽 was doing well, but she was eager to see whose final attack would be stronger. With a handful of her mom's croquettes, still steaming and perfect, She quickly devoured them, feeling a bright surge of energy ripple through her body as her quirk kicked into high gear. She declared that her fuel levels were at maximum and that she was coming at 𝐼𝐻𝐻 with everything she had. Her stance dropped low, and the ground cracked beneath her sudden burst of power. In the medical wing, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 slammed his fists against the table, eyes shining as if he were watching the finals of a world tournament. He cheered for 𝐼𝐻𝐻, urging her to show her spirit. Tsukuyo clasped her hands together, beaming with motherly pride, confident that 𝐼𝐻𝐻 would be fine after eating the special croquette she had made, which provided her with double the boost, perfect for a big finishing move. Nanon's jaw dropped in surprise, realizing the reason behind 𝐼𝐻𝐻's glowing energy. Emma leaned forward, eyes wide in amazement, noting how 𝐼𝐻𝐻's energy skyrocketed instantly. 𝐾𝐿 nodded, arms crossed, analyzing every movement with a stern eye, recognizing that 𝐼𝐻𝐻's quirk was simple but dangerous in the right hands. If she overwhelmed 𝐼𝐻𝐻 with raw power, he might not have time to counter. Nui, still a little woozy on her medical bed but fully invested, giggled softly, excited by 𝐼𝐻𝐻's wild energy. Izuku watched silently, his eyes locked on the screen, thinking about 𝐼𝐻𝐻's incredible energy output and how 𝐼𝐻𝐻's ki felt different, calm and focused, as if he were waiting. Everyone's eyes remained glued to the screen, anticipating the final clash between the frenzied powerhouse and the composed prodigy. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 rolled his shoulders back, settling into his stance, a calm but excited spark flickering in his eyes. A faint breeze swirled around him, stirred by the quiet pulse of his heavenly ki. Across from him, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 crouched low, energy radiating off her like steam from a boiling pot, her fists clenched and trembling with sheer power. Their auras clashed before their fists ever did, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 burning hot and wild, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 cool and razor-focused. The arena seemed to hold its breath. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 leaned forward just an inch, while 𝐼𝐻𝐻 grinned with unhinged determination. In that electric moment, both fighters launched themselves toward each other, ready to collide with everything they had. As their fists collided, the arena erupted with force. A shockwave blasted outward from the point of impact, rattling the stands and sending loose debris skittering across the floor. The sound echoed through every corner of the stadium. For a moment, everything froze. Their fists were locked together, gyros wrapped in a controlled surge of heavenly ki, while 𝐼𝐻𝐻's glowed with the chaotic energy of her food-fueled quirk. The ground beneath them split, a spiderweb of cracks racing across the tiles. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 clenched her teeth, muscles straining with power, determined not to lose this one. gyro's expression remained calm, almost serene, but his eyes sharpened as he matched her intensity. Ki flared around him like a silent storm, while 𝐼𝐻𝐻's energy roared like a furnace. Then, the collision detonated again, sending both fighters skidding backward, their heels carving deep grooves into the floor as they fought to stay standing. The crowd erupted in excitement, amazed by the display of power. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 remarked on the unbelievable output, while Ryuko noted that they were truly going all in. Daigo smirked, enjoying the fight, and Raiden watched silently, clearly impressed. On the stage, both 𝐼𝐻𝐻 and 𝐼𝐻𝐻 steadied themselves, battered and breathing, yet grinning like absolute lunatics. This final exchange wasn't over yet. As 𝐼𝐻𝐻 dropped from the impact, her body giving out, 𝐼𝐻𝐻 stepped forward and caught her before she could hit the ground. 𝐼𝐻𝐻's breath trembled, a tired smile stretching across her face as she acknowledged that he had won. 𝐼𝐻𝐻 gently lowered her to her feet, still supporting her, and thanked her for the fight, praising her performance. As they watched 𝐼𝐻𝐻 help 𝐼𝐻𝐻 back to her feet, Izuku felt a small smile tug at his lips. Their fight had been incredible and inspiring. He placed his hand on the bed and pushed himself up, but 𝐾𝐿 immediately stepped forward, towering like a stone wall, expressing concern for Izuku's condition. Nanon leaned over with her signature smirk, teasing him about his wobbly legs. Ignoring the sharp ache in his ribs, Izuku insisted that he was still sore but would be fine. Ɓaraso turned from the monitor, eyebrows raised in concern, urging Izuku to take it easy as his body was still healing. Tsukuyo stepped closer, warm yet stern, emphasizing the importance of rest and recovery. Izuku managed a shaky laugh, assuring them he would be all right and that he didn't want to fall behind. Nui peeked over 𝐾𝐿's shoulder, her usual spark in her eyes, calling him cute for still trying his best despite being beat up. Emma moved to his side, placing a supportive hand on his back as he stood upright, reminding him not to rush himself. His legs trembled for a moment, but he steadied himself, feeling warmth swell in his chest as he watched 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐸 smiling on the arena screen. He thought about how everyone was growing stronger and that he needed to grow too, no matter how much it hurt. Taking a slow breath, he declared that he wanted to be there when Satsuki made her announcement. As they stepped out of the medical wing, the cool hallway air hit Izuku's face. Emma stayed close on his right, and Kiriko on his left, ensuring he didn't overexert himself. Ahead of them, he saw Iroh, Raiden, and Daigo walking together, then slowing to face them. Iroh stopped first, hands in his pockets, relaxed but clearly proud after his match with Mako. Raiden stood tall and composed, giving a brief nod their way, while Daigo crossed his arms, smirking as if he already knew what Satsuki's verdict would be. Without a word, the three of them stepped to the side, forming a neat line. Emma whispered to Izuku that it looked like they were waiting for them. Kiriko allowed herself a small smile as she stepped forward beside him, feeling that they were finally being seen as equals. Izuku walked forward, still a little shaky but standing as tall as he could. When they reached the trio, Iroh shifted aside to make space. Together, the six of them, Izuku, Emma, Kiriko, Iroh, Raiden, and Daigo, stood shoulder to shoulder. For the first time, it truly felt like a team. The doors to the arena opened, and a flood of light poured out. The crowd was already loud, students cheering and murmuring about the results. Above it all, Satsuki Kiryuin stood on the balcony, her gaze sharp and commanding. They stepped into the arena as one united front. Izuku's mind raced with thoughts of the journey they had taken, filled with pain, fights, and victories. They were finally walking into this together. Kiriko inhaled deeply, ready for what lay ahead. Emma straightened her posture, determination burning in her eyes. Iroh casually cracked his knuckles, while Raiden allowed his aura to flare slightly. Daigo grinned confidently, and Izuku tightened his fists, heart racing as he awaited Satsuki's announcement. The doors of the medical wing slid open, sunlight spilling in from the arena corridor. Although his legs were still a bit sore, Izuku pushed himself forward. Emma walked beside him, steady and quiet, while Kiriko adjusted her uniform, cherry petals drifting off her shoulders like sparks. Footsteps echoed behind them. 𝐼𝐻𝐸 was the first to catch up, hands in his pockets and a lazy grin on his face. Iroh Akashiro followed at an easy pace, calm as ever, his eyes half closed but fully aware. Raiden Barrett approached last, silent and sharp, his presence heavy enough to feel without even looking at him. Without a word, the three of them stepped into formation beside Izuku and the others. Daigo lined up on Izuku's right, cracking his knuckles with a confident smirk. Iroh took the spot next to Emma, giving her a small nod. Raiden positioned himself beside Kiriko, arms crossed and expression unreadable. Just like that, the six of them formed a perfect line. Six fighters who had just survived the clan trials, side by side for the first time. The muffled roar of the crowd shook the hallway as the massive arena doors began to open. Emma inhaled slowly, Kiriko tightened her gloves, Iroh exhaled calmly, Daigo rolled his shoulders in a relaxed manner, and Raiden stared straight ahead, focused. Izuku felt his heart P&D, but the fear had transformed into something stronger. Together, they walked forward into the blinding light of the arena, not as separate clan members, but as the next generation of Honnoji Academy's elites. As they stepped onto the central platform, the arena lights dimmed. Above them, a raised balcony opened like a shining throne, glowing with rainbow light and gold trim. Standing at the center was Ragyo Kiryuin herself, radiant and commanding, her presence freezing the entire arena into silence. She lifted one hand, and the crowd fell still. Ragyo's voice rolled across the arena, smooth and resonant. She addressed the students of Honnoji Academy, announcing the end of their clan trials and the beginning of a new era. Her rainbow hair shimmered like living light as she praised the strength and resolve displayed in the battles. Only a select few had shown the potential worthy of standing at the top, and she gestured toward the six of them standing side by side. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐸 declared them the new elite students of Honnoji Academy, having proven exceptional skill and the unbreakable will needed to rise above their limits. The stands erupted in cheers, shaking the entire arena. Satsuki stepped forward beside her, arms folded and gaze sharp. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐸 continued, explaining that these individuals came from clans with long histories and powerful techniques, yet they did not rely on heritage alone. Each one earned their place through strength, determination, and the battles witnessed that day. Her eyes swept across the crowd, gleaming with pride and authority as she proclaimed that from this day forward, they would train, evolve, and surpass even the greatest warriors their families had produced. They were the future of this academy and perhaps the world. A spotlight burst into existence around them, bright and intense, as 𝐼𝐻𝐸 urged everyone to rejoice, for a new generation of power had awakened. The arena roared with applause and excitement. Emma tried her best to hide her nerves, while Kiriko stood strong, cherry petals drifting faintly in the air. Daigo flashed a confident grin, Yuro remained calm with a steady posture, and Raiden kept his eyes locked forward, unblinking. Izuku clenched his fist, feeling his heart beat like a drum. They had made it. They were elite now. As they left the arena, Izuku walked alongside Emma, Kiriko, Yuro, Raiden, and Daigo when he suddenly heard 𝐼𝐻𝐸's voice, calm, elegant, and commanding. She addressed him directly, asking if he would like her to take him home. Surprised that she spoke to him, he paused for a moment before responding affirmatively. A small, unreadable smile curled on her lips as she invited him to come along. The clan grandchildren glanced back at him, some confused, some worried, but he followed 𝐼𝐻𝐸 as she gracefully led the way out of the stadium. Stepping into the parking lot, the cool air hit his face. 𝐼𝐻𝐸 walked a few paces ahead, elegant and confident, almost glowing under the evening lights. They approached a sleek white Audi R8 parked perfectly near the front, its polished surface reflecting the stadium lights like a mirror. The car looked expensive enough that Izuku hesitated to get too close. 𝐼𝐻𝐸 stopped beside it and tapped the roof lightly with one manicured finger, announcing it as their ride. The doors lifted upward smoothly with a soft mechanical hiss. The interior was spotless, white leather, chrome trim, and a faint scent of expensive perfume. Izuku remarked on how nice it was, and 𝐼𝐻𝐸 smirked, almost amused, stating that she did not settle for anything less than excellence. He swallowed, nodded, and slid into the passenger seat as she circled around to the driver's side, her heels clicking softly on the pavement. The engine purred to life, smooth, powerful, and almost silent. As they pulled out of the academy lot, the headlights cut through the neon glow of Honnoji. The buildings blurred by, tall, sharp, and alive with late-night chatter. The hum of the R8's engine was barely audible, but the silence between them felt louder. 𝐼𝐻𝐸 kept one hand on the wheel, the other resting casually near the console, her eyes focused and calm. She mentioned that he was probably wondering who had asked her to take him home. Izuku blinked, sitting up a little straighter, and inquired about who it was. A small smile curled at the corner of her lips, knowing and almost playful, as she revealed that it was her old friend, 𝐼𝐻𝐸, Izuku's. Izuku's breath caught in his throat, surprised to learn that 𝐼𝐻𝐸 knew 𝐒𝐮𝐻𝐸. She explained that they had a history, and when 𝐼𝐻𝐸 heard Izuku's story, he personally called her, instructing her to keep an eye on him. 𝐼𝐻𝐸 glanced toward him briefly, her eyes sharp with interest, and added that she intended to do just that, as 𝐼𝐻𝐸 did not vouch for just anyone. The car glided smoothly down the city streets, and Izuku's heart pounded, not from fear, but from shock. Mr. 𝐼𝐻𝐸 rarely spoke about his past, and hearing 𝐼𝐻𝐸 speak so casually about him felt surreal. He expressed his surprise at 𝐼𝐻𝐸's connections, and 𝐼𝐻𝐸 responded that his MSTR had far more secrets than he realized. She smiled softly, yet mysteriously, before turning her focus back to the road. Then, in a calm, soothing tone, she assured him that she was aware of his key, and that his secret was safe with her. Izuku's eyes widened, breath hitching in his throat as he processed her words. "How did you?" She lifted a hand slightly, gesturing for him to relax. 𝐼𝐻𝐸 assured him that his secret was safe with her. Her words were gentle, but there was weight behind them, as if she carried knowledge far older than anything he had encountered. Izuku felt a knot in his stomach, recalling 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐿's warning to never reveal his secret to anyone. 𝐼𝐬 acknowledged 𝐼𝐻's caution but revealed that she had known about Ki long before Izuku was born. She could sense it when awakened in someone, and his burned bright. As they glided past a row of glowing billboards, 𝐼𝐬 continued, expressing her lack of interest in exposing him. Instead, she was impressed by his abilities, which the world hadn't seen in generations. Izuku's heart raced as he processed her words. He wondered if she was not afraid of his power. 𝐼𝐬 chuckled softly, a warm yet powerful sound, and expressed her intrigue. She offered to help him understand aspects of his power that even 𝐼𝐻 hadn't shared, but only when he was ready. 𝐼𝐬 mentioned the clans, and Izuku quickly listed them: the Genji, Barret, Corleone, Haxorus, Guillaume, and Akashiro clans. 𝐼𝐬 smiled approvingly, acknowledging his attentiveness. He shared that he had met the grandchildren of some clan leaders, and she remarked on how fate wove people together for a reason, emphasizing the clan's significant impact on history. Izuku noted that 𝐒𝐮𝐲𝐿 had only shared a little with him, to which 𝐼𝐬 responded that 𝐻 would always be cautious, fearing what Izuku could become if he learned too much too quickly. The car fell into a comfortable silence, filled only with the soft hum of the engine and the glow of Honno City passing by. Izuku asked if she had ever been a pro hero, and 𝐼𝐬 revealed that she was the retired number 3 hero, 𝐼𝐬 Kiryuin, also known as the String Empress. Izuku's eyes widened in awe as he recognized her legendary status. 𝐼𝐬 smirked with pride, acknowledging her past accomplishments, but she reminded him that he was far more interesting than she had ever been. Curious, Izuku inquired about her retirement, and 𝐼𝐬's expression softened as she explained that she had fallen in love with 𝐼𝐮𝐻𝐻, which changed everything for her. She spoke fondly of her daughters, Satsuki, Ryuko, and Nui, sharing how motherhood shifted her priorities from protecting the world to protecting her family. Izuku found her story appealing, and 𝐼𝐬 reflected on how motherhood changed even an empress. She mentioned hearing from 𝐻 about Izuku's past, and he froze for a moment, staring out the window. 𝐼𝐬's voice held a calm fury as she spoke about his difficult upbringing and the neglect he faced from his famous parents. Izuku clenched his fists, feeling the weight of her words. 𝐼𝐬 emphasized that children deserved support, not abandonment or cruelty, especially from those meant to protect them. As the car rolled to a gentle stop at the base of the mountain path, Izuku looked up to see the familiar stone torii and lanterns leading to 𝐼𝐻𝐻's temple. The air felt cleaner and calmer. 𝐼𝐬 parked the car and turned to him with a soft, almost motherly smile. She asked him to say hello to 𝐻 for her and offered her support if he ever needed guidance or someone to talk to. Izuku nodded, grateful for her kindness. After thanking her for the ride and her words, 𝐼𝐬 encouraged him to remember that he was a good kid. She gently patted his shoulder before unlocking the door, reminding him that 𝐻 was likely already sensing him from halfway up the mountain. As Izuku stepped out into the cool mountain breeze, 𝐼𝐬 waved goodbye, and the sound of her car faded into the quiet forest. Upon entering the quiet training hall, Izuku noticed the faint smell of incense and an unusual silence. There was no booming voice or harsh training orders from 𝐻. Instead, a single folded paper sat on the table. He sighed and picked it up, reading 𝐻's note about going to the bar to celebrate the news in the morning. Izuku placed the note down, shaking his head at his 𝐼𝐻𝐻's typical behavior, and headed to his room to rest. Meanwhile, in a dim bar illuminated by soft lantern light, 𝐻 sat hunched over the counter, swirling a half-empty cup of sake. The bartender remained quiet, either out of respect or fear, as 𝐻 muttered to himself about his student passing the trials. The door slid open with a soft chime, and 𝐻 didn't look up until he heard a familiar voice. 𝐼𝐬 entered, regal and composed, catching the lantern light with her long white coat. 𝐻's eye twitched slightly as he turned to see her. 𝐼𝐬 informed him that she had watched his student pass the trials and came to offer her congratulations. 𝐻 scoffed, amusement hidden beneath his tone, and remarked that she always showed up when trouble followed. 𝐼𝐬 elegantly folded her hands, assuring him that this time she brought good news. 𝐻 remained skeptical, but he turned fully toward her, curious about what she had to say. For a moment, The bar is silent except for the distant sounds of the city and the soft clink of sake bottles. 𝐼𝐬𝐲 observes him, the weary posture, the old scar beneath his eye, the slight tremor in his fingers. 𝐾𝐞 studies her in return, unfazed, radiant, and confident, as if she owned the entire district. 𝐼𝐬𝐲 expresses her intent to confirm something about Izuku, and 𝐾𝐞's curiosity is piqued. 𝐼𝐬𝐲 notes that Izuku possesses a potential not seen in decades, recognized by the clans and the school, and now by her as well after witnessing him that day. 𝐾𝐞 dismisses this, asserting that potential means little if he cannot control his abilities without harming himself. 𝐼𝐬𝐲 offers a slight smile, teasing 𝐾𝐞 about pretending not to be proud. In frustration, 𝐾𝐞 slams his cup down, causing a soft crack on the counter, and admits his pride in Izuku's resilience despite his past hardships. However, he expresses concern for the very reason he admires the boy. 𝐼𝐬𝐲's expression softens, revealing a rare gentleness as she relates to 𝐾𝐞's worries about her own daughters. 𝐾𝐞 inquires about them, and 𝐼𝐬𝐲 shares a light laugh, confirming that Satsuki still leads with authority and Ryuko remains fiery, traits inherited from their father. She mentions Nui, who remains unpredictable yet is still her little angel. 𝐾𝐞 scoffs at the term angel, recalling Nui's destructive tendencies. 𝐼𝐬𝐲 clarifies that while Nui may not be innocent, she is still dear to her. The atmosphere grows warm and familiar, almost reminiscent of old comrades. 𝐾𝐞 asks what comes next, wondering if 𝐼𝐬𝐲 intends to watch over Izuku. She clarifies that she does not simply observe, she protects what interests her. 𝐾𝐞 rolls his eyes, humorously lamenting the idea of an overpowered woman hovering around the boy. 𝐼𝐬𝐲 smirks, playfully suggesting he might be jealous, causing him to choke on his drink. 𝐾𝐞 insists he is not, but 𝐼𝐬𝐲 sees through his denial. As 𝐾𝐞 signals the bartender for another round, he remarks that 𝐼𝐬𝐲 hasn't changed. She counters that neither has he, tapping her nails lightly on the counter, acknowledging that their resilience is why they are both still alive. 𝐾𝐞 presses her for the truth about her reason for wanting to talk, and 𝐼𝐬𝐲's smile fades into sincerity. She reveals that Izuku is destined to be important to the clans and the world, placing a hand on his shoulder to reassure him that he did not fail Izuku, but rather saved him. 𝐾𝐞's breath catches momentarily, but he avoids her gaze, grumbling about her words. 𝐼𝐬𝐲's laughter is warm as she suggests she will repeat her sentiments the next day. 𝐾𝐞 reflects on how he has been since 𝐒𝐮𝐽's death, and the question weighs heavily in the air. 𝐼𝐬𝐲's smile vanishes, her fingers tightening around her glass as she lowers her head, revealing her vulnerability. She admits that losing 𝐒𝐮𝐽 has been difficult, and 𝐾𝐞 remains silent, understanding that sometimes silence is more comforting than words. 𝐼𝐬𝐲's voice softens, 𝐒𝐮𝐽 of its usual confidence as she recalls 𝐒𝐮𝐽's ability to challenge her not through power, but kindness. He grounded her, and even at her worst, he remained by her side. Her hand trembles before she hides it beneath the counter, expressing that losing him has left a wound that cannot heal. 𝐾𝐞 reassures her that her daughters have held together because of her, but 𝐼𝐬𝐲 insists it was 𝐒𝐮𝐽's influence that kept them strong. Satsuki took on the burden left behind, Ryuko masked her grief with anger, and Nui lost the father who cherished her most. 𝐼𝐬𝐲's voice nearly breaks as she laments her inability to protect them from that pain. 𝐾𝐞 turns to her fully, urging her not to blame herself for something beyond her control. 𝐼𝐬𝐲 closes her eyes, memories flooding back as she recalls 𝐒𝐮𝐽's words about not shouldering burdens alone. She lets out a brittle laugh, admitting she never listened until it was too late. 𝐾𝐞 places a steady hand on her arm, grounding her as he suggests that perhaps she sees herself in Izuku, a boy carrying the weight of his world. 𝐼𝐬𝐲 opens her eyes, soft and shining, acknowledging that Izuku reminds her of a time when power felt like a blessing rather than a curse. 𝐾𝐞 agrees that 𝐒𝐮𝐽 would have liked him. For a moment, they share a quiet understanding, two warriors mourning different pasts, connected by a boy who might change everything. 𝐾𝐞 inquires about 𝐼𝐬𝐲's daughters, and she sighs deeply, revealing Satsuki's hidden pain and Ryuko's relentless training fueled by guilt. She hesitates when discussing Nui, whose self-blame weighs heavily on her. 𝐾𝐞 lowers his gaze, knowing the burden she carries. 𝗟𝐼𝐜𝐬's grip tightens around her glass as she recounts her relentless search for answers after 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐻𝐬's death. She reflects on her hollowed state, driven by loss and a mother's fury. She reveals that all she received in her quest was a name, 𝗟𝗂. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐻𝐬's expression sharpens, recognizing the name all too well. 𝗟𝐼𝐜𝐬's fingers curl into a fist beside her glass, vowing that if she encounters that monster again, he will not escape a second time. Silence envelopes them, thick and electric, as they share the weight of their grief and the common enemy. 𝗟𝐼𝐜𝐬 raises her newly poured drink, rolling the glass between her fingers and asking 𝐼𝐻𝐬 if he taught Izuku the Kaioken technique. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 chuckles, curious about Izuku's progress. 𝗟𝐼𝐜𝐬 confirms that he used it against 𝗟𝗏𝐽, prompting 𝐻𝐻𝐬 to laugh heartily, imagining the big guy's reaction. As 𝗟𝐼𝐜𝐬 prepares to leave, she places a few bills on the counter and smooths out her coat, acknowledging that she must be on her way. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 offers her a genuine smile, and she pauses, seeing him not just as a warrior or clan elder, but as an old friend. She urges him to take care of Izuku, knowing he will need support. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 affirms his commitment, and 𝗟𝐼𝐜𝐬 nods before stepping away from the bar, her heels clicking lightly against the floor. As she stepped into the neon-lit night of Honnoji, the door closed behind her, leaving 𝐻𝐻𝐬 alone with his drink and the weight of their conversation. The following morning, after celebrating Izuku's success in passing the elite student exam, the fresh and cool air filled his lungs. He still couldn't believe he had triumphed over someone like 𝗟𝗏𝐽. Izuku expressed his gratitude to 𝐻𝐻𝐬𝐬 for the celebration, who chuckled while tying his hair back, pride evident in his expression. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 reassured him that his victory was not due to luck but a demonstration of his true capabilities. Izuku admitted that his body was still recovering from the fight and asked if 𝐻𝐻𝐬 had any techniques to help heal him. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 responded that he had something that would assist him, then walked down the hall, his footsteps echoing softly. Izuku stretched his sore muscles, waiting for 𝐻𝐻𝐬's return. When 𝐻𝐻𝐬 came back, he carried a small cloth bag and a peculiar jar. He revealed that the contents were senzu beans, a rare gift from an old friend. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 encouraged Izuku to eat one, tossing it to him. Skeptical, Izuku examined the tiny bean but decided to trust 𝐻𝐻𝐬 and swallowed it. Instantly, a warm sensation surged through his body, alleviating his aches and restoring his strength. Overwhelmed, Izuku exclaimed how incredible he felt, and 𝐻𝐻𝐬 proudly confirmed that one senzu bean could fully restore a person's body, but warned him of their rarity. Feeling rejuvenated, Izuku thanked 𝐻𝐻𝐬, who informed him that now they could begin his real training. As they entered the training hall, the familiar scent of incense and polished wood filled the air. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 rummaged through a storage chest and returned with a folded training uniform. Izuku reached for it but was taken aback by its weight. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 smirked, revealing that each weight was about 150 pounds. Izuku struggled to lift it, astonished by its heaviness. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 explained that this new uniform was a significant upgrade, suitable for someone who had passed the elite exam. As Izuku attempted to put on the top, he felt the weight drag him down. 𝐻𝐻𝐬 encouraged him to focus on becoming stronger than the weight, stepping back with a grin. He revealed that the uniform matched the weight his MSTR wore, marking Izuku's official entry into serious training. Despite the pressure, Izuku felt a warm stir of pride, excitement, and a hint of fear. He resolved to embrace the challenge, ready to push his limits further than before. Meanwhile, hidden from civilization, a massive ancient temple village lay nestled between mist-covered cliffs, home to the feared 𝗟𝗏𝗏 gang. Xander and 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐦𝐽 walked up the stone path toward the main building, the mountain wind brushing against their coats. Xander groaned about being assigned to scouting duty, feeling it was disrespectful after their previous high-risk missions. 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐦𝐽, with a flat expression, reminded him that their failure during a bank job had consequences. Xander protested that it wasn't entirely their fault, but 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐦 pointed out that they had underestimated the Elite Four. Xander grimaced at the memory of their defeat, acknowledging that they were indeed being punished for their past mistakes. As they reached the towering doors of the hall, the guards opened them, and the atmosphere shifted to one of quiet anticipation. The flickering torchlight illuminated the polished floors as they stepped inside. Xander wondered if their report would even matter, but 𝐾𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐦 assured him that it would. Honnoji Academy was anything but ordinary. As Xander and 𝐾𝐮 approached the throne platform, they prepared to kneel and present their findings to 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐬, the boss of the 𝐒𝐵H𝐸 gang. One thing was clear: Orion did not tolerate bad reports. The atmosphere in the main building felt heavy, the dim lights flickering against the cracked walls, and the scent of smoke and metal lingered in the air. Their footsteps came to a halt when they spotted him. Orion stood in the center of the ruined hall, his shirt open, with flames softly curling from his arms. His red eyes glinted with a predatory sharpness as they shifted toward the two. Xander felt a chill run down his spine, whispering to himself that the look on Orion's face indicated they had messed up. 𝐾𝐮 swallowed hard as Orion stepped closer, the charred markings on his chest glowing faintly. He urged Xander to remain calm, hoping that Orion wouldn't be too harsh on them. Orion commanded them to report immediately. Xander stepped forward, nervously rubbing the back of his neck as Orion's intense gaze bore into him. He explained that they had observed the entire entrance exam as instructed, noting that all 6 clans had shown up and displayed impressive strength. However, what truly caught their attention was the key emanating from a green-haired boy named Izuku Midoriya. Orion's interest peaked at the mention of Midoriya, his eyes narrowing. Xander admitted they didn't have much information, but it was enough to recognize that Midoriya was a formidable opponent, having defeated 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲. Orion's expression shifted, intrigued by the idea that a mere student could best the Iron Wall of Honnoji. 𝐾𝐮 interjected, emphasizing that it wasn't mere luck. Midoriya's ki had surged like nothing they had witnessed before, controlled yet barely restrained, as if he were holding back something immense. Orion absorbed this information, flames flickering across his arms as he urged them to continue. 𝐾𝐮 described Midoriya's ki as extraordinary, bright and powerful, a stark contrast to Orion's own. Orion's smirk deepened, a low glow pulsing beneath his skin as he contemplated the implications of such a clash of energies. Xander, confused, asked why Orion seemed so excited about this revelation. Orion turned away, hands in his pockets, the flames around him flickering with amusement as he explained that it had been a long time since he had encountered someone whose ki naturally opposed his own. He elaborated that light and darkness, creation and destruction, were forces that attracted and collided with great intensity. Anyone capable of overpowering 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲 might be worth his attention. 𝐾𝐮, sensing the gravity of the situation, inquired whether Orion intended to recruit or confront Midoriya. Orion's quiet, dangerous laugh hinted at the possibility of both. Xander asked what their next steps should be, and Orion instructed them to keep a close watch on Midoriya. They were to track his movements, observe his interactions, and gather intel on his strengths and weaknesses. Orion emphasized the importance of remaining undetected, as he had no time for distractions from 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲 or Sanojima. As they prepared to leave, Orion's demeanor shifted, revealing a more serious side. He warned them that Midoriya's awakening ki could disrupt the delicate balance maintained by the clans for generations. The moment someone like him emerged, everything could change. Alliances, rivalries, and bloodlines would be affected. Xander stammered, realizing the danger Midoriya posed, but Orion clarified that he was not a threat to him, but rather to the established order. 𝐾𝐮 asked for their strategy, and Orion replied that they would watch and wait, ready to act when the time was right. He concluded their meeting, sending them off with a sense of urgency. As Xander and 𝐾𝐮 hurried out of the hall, the doors slammed shut behind them. Orion returned to his throne, a dark smirk on his face as shadows coiled around him, his ki radiating like a living storm. He contemplated Izuku Midoriya, intrigued by what made him so special. Meanwhile, at 𝐼𝐻𝐬's temple, Izuku stood in the training hall, the morning light streaming through the wooden beams. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 adjusted his stance and motioned for Izuku to follow. As Izuku attempted to move, the weighted clothing felt like a heavy burden, forcing him to adjust his balance with each step. He wondered how 𝐼𝐻𝐬 had managed this weight and how the previous 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲 had coped. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 chuckled, explaining that the old 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐲 had not merely handled it but had endured until their bodies adapted. Izuku straightened, breathing heavily, realizing that the training would require discipline and willpower. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 encouraged him, assuring him that he would adapt quickly, noting that Izuku's ki control was already impressive for his age. Izuku looked down at his weighted attire, sweat beginning to bead on his forehead, and expressed concern about what lay ahead. Kite smirked, telling him to wear the weights all day without exception, and reminded him that he was going to be late for his first day at Honnoji Academy. Izuku tried to run but found himself struggling under the weight. Each step felt like pushing against invisible gravity, and he nearly stumbled before catching himself. Despite the challenge, Kite watched with quiet amusement as Izuku fought to reach the exit, assuring him that he would appreciate this training later. Now move it, elite students don't show up late. Izuku pushed forward, wobbling but determined. He was going, fueled by excitement, nerves, and pride. At Honnoji Academy's entrance, Izuku soared toward the school, using his ki to counterbalance the weight of his new training gear. When he landed at the front entrance, his boots hit the pavement with a thud, creating a small gust of wind. He checked the clock above the school gates, 8 a.m. Right on time. Izuku exhaled in relief, rolled his shoulders to adjust the heavy uniform, and headed inside. Each step echoed slightly heavier than usual, but he pressed on. The hallways buzzed with chatter, students giving him curious or impressed looks as he passed, some whispering about the exams, others about the clans. He walked until he reached a tall sliding door with a plaque engraved in bold gold lettering. Elite Students' Homeroom. This was it. He tightened his fists, steadied his breath, and stepped inside. As Izuku slid the door open, the room quieted for a moment. Every elite student turned toward him, each reacting in their own distinct way. Satsuki sat at the front with perfect posture, arms crossed, and gave him a single approving nod. Ryuko leaned back in her chair, grinning at him. Meiko was eating a rice ball her mom made. Nui spun around in her seat, kicking her legs playfully and teasing him. Nanon listened to classical music on her phone. Gamagori stood tall in the back, arms crossed like a fortress, and let out a proud laugh. Inomuta adjusted his visor, scanning Izuku immediately. Sangiyama was shadowboxing in the corner, stopping mid-punch to beam at him. Raiden sat silently with his arms behind his head, glancing over with a bored expression but smirking slightly. Emma leaned forward with a bright smile, inviting him to sit near them. Jiro waved lazily from the corner, already half asleep against the wall. Kiriko was braiding a small strand of her cherry blossom-colored hair, looking up to smile softly at him. Daigo cracked his knuckles, leaning back confidently and encouraging him not to fall behind. As Izuku stepped fully inside, he felt the atmosphere shift. This wasn't just a classroom, it was a room full of formidable individuals. And now, he was one of them. He set his weighted bag down beside his desk, just as the door slid open again. Everyone looked up to see Ikuro Mikisuji standing in the doorway, wearing his usual loose tie, open shirt, and shiny sunglasses. He flipped a bit of his violet hair back with dramatic ease. Ikuro greeted everyone and welcomed the new elite students. A few students straightened up immediately, and Gamagori became a wall of DSP. Satsuki narrowed her eyes, expecting professionalism from him. Ryuko rolled her eyes, while Nui waved excitedly. Inomuta started typing instantly, probably checking attendance. Ikuro stepped inside, hands in his pockets, radiating relaxed confidence. He announced that today marked the beginning of their formal training as Honnoji Academy's highest-performing students. They had all proven their power, and now they would prove their control. He glanced at Izuku, noticing the strain in his posture, and smirked knowingly. Ikuro continued, stating that each student would demonstrate their quirk so their classmates would understand who they were rising alongside and competing against. This caught the entire class's attention, and Izuku felt a spark of nerves and excitement. Ikuro called on him to start, as he was the newest addition. The room fell silent, all eyes on Izuku, intense and curious. As he reached the front of the class, he took a steady breath and introduced himself. After he returned to his seat, Kiriko stepped forward next, followed by Raiden, Emma, Daigo, and Jiro, each introducing themselves in turn. With introductions complete, Ikuro divided everyone into patrol groups, assigning Gamagori to Izuku, Satsuki to Raiden, Nui to Kiriko, Meiko to Jiro, Ryuko to Daigo, and Nanon to Emma. Each group would patrol different sectors of Hano City for the day. 𝐼KURO emphasized that these patrols were not just about keeping the city safe, they were also a team-building exercise. He pointed out that strength meant little if they could not rely on each other. Today, they would learn to communicate, support one another, and function as a team, marking their first real test as elite students. He clapped his hands once and asked if there were any questions. With none raised, he instructed them to get moving. As 𝗟𝐿 and Izuku walked side by side through the busy streets of Hano City, the morning sun reflected off the towering buildings. 𝗟𝐿 explained that community service was essential, emphasizing that maintaining order was about responsibility, not just strength. He handed Izuku a folded slip of paper, which contained a message from 𝐿, encouraging him not to push himself. Izuku felt a slight droop in his shoulders but was reassured by 𝗟𝐿's words about their role as elites. As they continued walking, they noticed an elderly shopkeeper struggling to lift several heavy crates of produce. 𝗟𝐿 instructed Izuku to assist him. Izuku hurried over, offering his help and surprising the shopkeeper with his strength. A young man was urged to be strong, and Izuku felt a blush rise to his cheeks as he acknowledged his role. 𝗟𝐿 nodded in approval, reminding him that strength was meaningless unless used for others. Suddenly, a tremendous boom shook the air, and a plume of smoke rose from the highway overlooking the district. Before Izuku could fully comprehend the situation, his earpiece crackled to life with 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷's urgent voice, announcing a major crash involving multiple cars and a possible fuel leak. All elite groups were instructed to converge on Highway Sector 3, prioritizing evacuation and containment. 𝗟𝐿 narrowed his eyes, already turning toward the highway and commanding Izuku to follow him. Izuku nodded sharply, ready to act. 𝗟𝐿 leaped first, landing on a rooftop with a thunderous crack. Izuku kicked off the ground, launching himself upward despite the weight of his uniform. They raced across the rooftops toward the rising smoke, and as they approached the highway, the chaos became evident. 3 cars were flipped over, a cargo truck had smashed into the divider, flames were lighting up from a leaking fuel tank, and civilians were screaming and scrambling to escape. 𝗟𝐿 landed on the road with the force of a falling boulder, stopping debris from rolling further. He instructed Izuku to handle the evacuation while he kept the fire at bay. Izuku yanked a car door open, pulling a trapped driver free and reassuring him to follow the edge of the divider and stay low. The man nodded and ran to safety. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷's voice came through again, warning of increasing fuel reaction readings and rising explosion risk, emphasizing the need for speed. Izuku's eyes widened as he realized the urgency of the situation. He called out to 𝗟𝐿, urging him to move quickly as the truck might explode. 𝗟𝐿 braced himself against the flaming cargo vehicle, muscles straining, and commanded Izuku to keep saving people. Izuku swallowed hard, nodded, and sprinted toward the next overturned car. He pulled the last civilian from the crushed sedan just as the flames from the tanker roared higher, the heat scorching his face. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐷's voice warned of an imminent tanker explosion. Izuku's eyes darted from the burning truck to the side rail overlooking the distant shoreline. He formulated a plan to get the tanker over the edge. As he bolted toward the tanker, 𝗟𝐿 struggled to hold up a minivan with one arm, preventing it from tipping off the bridge. 𝗟𝐿 shouted for Izuku to get back, but Izuku pressed on, ducking under the flaming undercarriage and planting both hands on the bumper. The metal burned his palms, but he gritted his teeth and pushed with all his might. The tanker inched, then lurched. Ryuko and Daigo landed beside 𝗟𝐿, urging him to help Izuku. Ryuko rushed to assist 𝗟𝐿 while Daigo sprinted toward Izuku. With a roar, Izuku shoved again, and the tanker slid, tires screeching and metal groaning, until it finally tipped over. Daigo shouted for Izuku to get clear just as the tanker plummeted off the highway. Below, a massive fireball erupted safely over the open water, sending a wave crashing upward from the force. Izuku collapsed onto one knee, breathing, with smoke rising from his arms. Daigo reached him first, expressing disbelief at Izuku's reckless yet impressive actions. 𝗟𝐿 approached, furious yet relieved, reminding Izuku that he had disobeyed orders but acknowledging that he had saved dozens of lives. Ryuko smirked, teasing Izuku about causing trouble on his first day of patrol. As Izuku set the rescued civilian down with the paramedics, something on the ground caught his eye, half hidden under a piece of twisted highway railing. He knelt and pulled out a small, scorched device. The screen flickered weakly, revealing a strange, flame-shaped symbol. Ryuko jogged over, curious about what he had found. Izuku showed her the device, speculating that it looked like some kind of remote. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 stepped closer, examining the device and recognizing the symbol. He identified it as belonging to a small-time criminal known as 𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵, a petty villain who caused fires to cover his robberies. Daigo expressed surprise that 𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵 was still at large, having escaped custody 2 weeks prior. Ryuko glared at the damaged device, realizing that the crash might not have been an accident after all. Izuku clenched his fist, determined that if 𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵 was still around, he might be planning something bigger. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 pocketed the ruined device, deciding to report it to Lady Satsuki. He praised Izuku for spotting it, noting that it could lead to an important lead. Izuku smiled sheepishly, admitting he had just seen something shiny on the ground. Ryuko bumped his shoulder, reminding him that the shiny thing might help catch a villain. Meanwhile, Satsuki and Raiden walked side by side through the streets, listening to reports about 𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵's explosion on the highway. Raiden felt frustrated for being stuck on patrol while others handled the action. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's voice came through, informing them that 𝐾𝐮𝐬, Izuku, Ryuko, and Daigo had secured the highway and that civilians were safe. However, it was believed that 𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵 had returned, using the highway incidents as a distraction to rob banks across Honnoji City. Satsuki stopped walking, her expression sharpening as she instructed Raiden to continue their patrol. She tapped her earpiece, directing 𝐼𝐻𝐬 to monitor all bank security feeds and notify the nearest patrol unit if any robbery was in progress. Satsuki glanced at Raiden, her crimson eyes filled with resolve, reminding him to stay sharp. If 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵 was bold enough to strike again, they would be the ones to stop him. Raiden smirked, feeling electricity crackle around his arm, ready for action. They continued forward, scanning every street and building for 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵's next move. Meanwhile, on a rooftop, 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵's henchman reported that everything was ready, with the bank's security looped and civilians contained. 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵, surrounded by violet butterflies formed from his energy, crushed one in his hand, satisfied with the chaos he had created. He was confident that by the time the heroes realized what was happening, it would already be too late. He adjusted his glasses and commanded his henchmen to move quickly, warning them that if any heroes showed up, he would handle them himself. The henchman nodded nervously as 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵's aura flared, reflecting off the bank's glass doors. Suddenly, the bank alarms blared, echoing through the district as masked henchmen stormed inside, forcing civilians to the floor. 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵's followed calmly, hands in his pockets as violet energy flickered around his boots like living fire. He instructed everyone to stay down, assuring them that the situation would be resolved quickly if they cooperated. Outside, several blocks away, Raiden's earpiece crackled to life with an urgent message. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 reported a confirmed bank robbery in Sector 4, with an energy signature matching 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵's. Raiden clenched his fist, feeling the tension rise. Satsuki adjusted her glove, her eyes sharp and focused as she requested the coordinates, ready to move. Meanwhile, Izuku and 𝐾𝐮𝐬 continued their patrol, unaware of the unfolding robbery. Izuku shifted uncomfortably under the weight of his training clothes, letting out a quiet breath as he remarked on the unusual quietness of the patrol. 𝐾𝐮𝐬 reminded him to remain focused, noting that threats do not always announce themselves. Back inside the bank, 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵 raised his hand as the vault alarms wailed louder. Violet energy surged from his palm, wrapping around the vault door as the metal began to glow and warp. He taunted the elites of Honnoji, eager to see how quickly they would respond. The vault door started to melt slowly, deliberately, while outside, sirens began to close in. 𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐵 smirked, inhaling deeply as the door warped under the intense energy radiating from him. He greeted the money with a grin, releasing a focused surge of heat that caused the reinforced vault door to groan and glow red before melting away in thick streams of molten metal. He commanded his henchmen to grab the cash and move quickly. Just then, A heavy thud echoed through the bank as a massive figure landed between 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 and the exit. 𝐼𝐮𝐬 stood there, arms crossed, towering over the scattered henchmen, his presence commanding enough to make the air feel heavier. 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 clicked his tongue, realizing his luck had run out. 𝐶𝐬 ordered the henchmen to drop the bags, declaring that the robbery would end there. Energy crackled faintly around him as he took a step forward, ready to confront 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬. In response, 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 threw his arms wide, energy flaring violently around him as he unleashed a powerful attack called Blaze Swarm. A chaotic wave of blazing butterflies erupted from his body, their wings burning like molten glass as they surged toward 𝐶𝐬. 𝐶𝐬 stood firm, unimpressed. The butterflies slammed into him, creating explosions that filled the bank lobby with fire, smoke, and shockwaves. Outside, the henchmen bolted for their van, clutching bags of money tightly as the engine roared to life. Inside the smoke, 𝐶𝐬 dug his feet into the floor, refusing to be pushed back. He declared that 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 would need more than flashy tricks to escape. As 𝐶𝐬 stepped forward through the flames, his eyes locked on 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬, he swung his sword in a wide arc, slicing through the blazing butterflies one after another. Explosions rippled through the air, but not all of them were stopped. Several butterflies slipped through and detonated against him, sending him crashing backward through the bank's glass doors and skidding across the pavement outside. The van's engine screamed as 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬's henchmen sped off down the street, disappearing into traffic with the stolen money. Moments later, 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 stepped out of the bank, hands in his pockets, flames flickering lazily around his shoulders. A smug grin stretched across his face as he looked down at 𝐶𝐬, who was pushing himself up, sword planted into the ground for support, his eyes burning with fury. 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 taunted 𝐶𝐬, suggesting that he was tougher than he had anticipated. 𝐶𝐬, filled with determination, criticized 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 for running away, calling it pathetic. 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 chuckled, claiming it was strategy since he had already gotten what he wanted. He prepared to leave, flames coiling around his boots, but then his gaze fell on a school bus at the intersection ahead, children pressed against the windows, blissfully unaware of the danger. A wicked grin spread across 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬's face as he challenged 𝐶𝐬 to save them. He moved both hands forward, summoning a massive butterfly-shaped construct of blazing energy that erupted into the air, its wings igniting the street in waves of heat. Smaller fire butterflies spiraled around it, shrieking as they dove toward the bus. The driver slammed the brakes, tires screeching in panic. 𝐶𝐬's eyes widened in alarm as he launched forward without hesitation, sword raised, urging everyone to get down. The mega butterfly descended, casting a burning shadow over the bus as flames rained from its wings. High above, unseen, 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬 laughed at the chaos he had created. As 𝐶𝐬 prepared a decisive strike, a blinding bolt of crackling lightning tore through the air, splitting the sky with a thunderous crack. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 had arrived, and the lightning spear pierced straight through the blazing mega butterfly, ripping it apart in a spectacular explosion of sparks and dissipating flames. The fire construct shattered midair, its burning fragments evaporating before they could reach the school bus. The sudden shockwave rocked the street, but the heat vanished just as quickly as it had appeared. 𝐶𝐬 stared in disbelief, acknowledging 𝐼𝐻𝐽's timely intervention. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 landed beside 𝐶𝐬, electricity still crawling along his arm, his eyes locked on 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬's. He warned 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬's to pick on someone who could fight back next time. 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐬 staggered back, smoke curling from his coat as his smirk twitched, still confident, but clearly annoyed. He acknowledged the lightning, realizing that the situation had just become more interesting. The school bus remained unharmed behind them, and the real fight was about to begin. 𝐶𝐬 declared that 𝐼𝐻𝐽𝐬's was his to handle while instructing 𝐼𝐻𝐽 to stop the van that had just taken off down the road. 𝐼𝐻𝐽 clicked his tongue, lightning flaring around his body as he launched himself into the air, electricity crackling as he rocketed after the speeding van. Satsuki, frustrated, called out to 𝐼𝐻𝐽 to wait, but he was already gone. Satsuki's uniform began to shift, threads tightening and glowing as power surged through her. In a flash of light, she transformed into her Junketsu Senpu form, the wind howling as she took to the sky, cape-like fibers cutting through the air. She accelerated, flying after Raiden, her eyes sharp and focused. Behind them, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 stepped forward, blade resting on his shoulder as he locked eyes with 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵. The street fell silent for a brief moment before the battle split in two. The van swerved through traffic, horns blaring as cars were forced aside. The henchmen celebrated their apparent success, but their joy was short-lived as they noticed Raiden flying straight toward them, electricity crackling violently around his body, eyes locked onto the van like a missile. Panic set in among the henchmen as they realized they were being pursued by one of the elite heroes. They prepared their weapons, ready to defend themselves against the incoming threat. One of the henchmen scrambled in the back of the van, pulling out a bulky, humming weapon as it powered up, its barrel glowing with unstable energy. The driver panicked, causing the van to fishtail. Outside, Raiden smirked, lightning surging brighter around him. He thought to himself that a toy like that wouldn't stop him. Raiden slammed down onto the roof of the speeding van, the metal groaning under the force of his landing. Sparks flew as his boots dug in to maintain his balance. Lightning surged around his arm, condensing into a sharp, blade-like edge of crackling energy wrapped around his hand. He declared that it would end now and raised his arm, ready to drive the lightning blade straight through the roof when another henchman shouted at him, warning him to eat this. A deafening blast erupted from the pulse cannon, the energy shot slamming into Raiden's side, creating a burst of light and force. The impact knocked him off the van, electricity scattering wildly as he was hurled through the air. Raiden crashed across the asphalt, skidding hard before flipping to a stop, smoke rising from the scorched ground beneath him. The van roared past, swerving back into traffic, and one henchman laughed, boasting about the hit. Raiden slowly pushed himself up, sparks still dancing along his arm, a sharp grin spreading across his face. He acknowledged that he was now angry. Raiden staggered to his feet just in time to see a white and red blur tear through the sky. Satsuki Kiryuin descended at extreme speed, her Junketsu form cutting through the air like a blade. She landed cleanly on top of the van, the impact crushing the roof inward. One henchman exclaimed in shock, recognizing Satsuki Kiryuin, and scrambled to raise the pulse cannon again, but he was too slow. In a single, precise motion, Satsuki drew her sword and slashed downward, cleaving straight through the pulse cannon and scattering sparks and broken components across the van's interior. Before anyone could react, she smashed the side window with a kick, shards of glass exploding outward. Satsuki leaned in, her sword stopping just short of the driver's throat, her voice cold and commanding as she ordered him to pull over. The driver froze, sweat dripping down his face as the van began to slow, tires screeching against the road. From behind, Raiden watched, clicking his tongue with a mix of irritation and admiration, thinking to himself that she was showing off. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 stood over 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵's battered body, armor scorched and cracked, smoke still rising from the villain's burned coat. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 declared that 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵 was under arrest. 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵 coughed, then smirked, a low, manic laugh escaping his lips as his body began to glow, orange energy pulsing beneath his skin like a ticking fuse. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 was taken aback, questioning what was happening. 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵 grinned wider, his eyes wild, and announced that it was time for him to go boom. The energy around him flared violently, the air warping from the heat as the ground beneath his feet began to crack. Alarms wailed in the distance. This wasn't an escape, it was a detonation. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 shouted for everyone to get back and didn't hesitate. Grabbing 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵's by the collar, he spun and hurled him straight into the air with all his strength. The villain shot skyward like a missile just as his glowing body reached its limit. A massive explosion detonated overhead, a fireball blooming across the sky. Shockwaves rattled nearby buildings, windows shattering as heat washed over the street, and debris rained down. When the smoke cleared, a scorched figure came crashing back to the ground, carving a crater into the asphalt. 𝐵𝐵𝐵𝐻𝐵 lay there, burned and broken, but still laughing. He muttered that it was worth it as his glow finally faded and his laughter died down, his body going limp. Sirens grew louder in the distance. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐽 straightened, breathing hard, eyes locked on the unconscious villain, and called him an idiot. Another crisis was stopped, barely. 20 minutes later, police cars lined the street, their lights flashing as officers took statements and secured the scene. Paramedics moved quickly between stretchers, checking civilians and heroes alike. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐬 sat on the back of an ambulance, arms crossed as a medic finished checking him over. He barely paid attention. His eyes were locked on Satsuki a short distance away, speaking calmly with a police officer. She gave a brief nod, then turned toward him. As Satsuki walked toward him, her expression was composed, but there was a clear edge of disappointment in her eyes. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐬 straightened slightly as she stopped a few steps in front of him, arms folded, eyes sharp and unyielding. Satsuki questioned why he had gone after the henchman without her. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐬 scoffed, turning his head slightly, asserting that just because she was Ragio's daughter didn't mean she could tell him what to do. Satsuki closed her eyes and exhaled slowly, reminding him that at Honnoji, she was the leader of the elite students and his senior, urging him not to put words in her mouth or assume she used her family name to get what she wanted like some spoiled person. Her eyes snapped open, locking onto his as she stated that as his senior, her role was to guide him, not to hold his hand or give him answers. She asked him if he had known they had a pulse cannon when he rushed the van. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐬 went silent, and she pressed on, asking if he believed he would be immune to those shots. He admitted he did not. Satsuki nodded once and asked him why he had rushed in. 𝐼𝐼𝐻𝐬 clenched his fists, admitting that he thought he could handle it. Satsuki's expression hardened as she explained that there was a difference between confidence and blind arrogance. Confidence accounts for the unknown, while arrogance ignores it. She gestured toward the wrecked van and the surrounding chaos, instructing him to observe and learn, reminding him that there was always more to a situation than simply stopping the target. She looked back at him one last time before leaving. Squad cars blocked off the road, with officers taking cover behind doors while civilians were pushed back behind barricades. One of the police officers noticed them immediately and waved them over, relief flashing across his face as he recognized their uniforms. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 stepped forward without hesitation and inquired about the situation. The officer swallowed, glancing back toward the building, and explained that armed suspects were barricaded inside a convenience store, with at least 5 hostages, including a child. The suspects were agitated and aware that heroes were present. 𝐼𝐻𝐬's jaw tightened as she followed his gaze to the shattered storefront windows. This was no longer just a robbery, it was a countdown. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the building and asked if there was any way in. The officer hesitated before pointing upward, indicating the ventilation system that connected through the roof. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 rolled her shoulders and cracked her neck, a sharp grin forming as she instructed Kiriko to stay outside and get anyone who might run out. Kiriko nodded, stepping back into position near the entrance. In a single fluid motion, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 leapt upward, landing on the roof with barely a sound. From below, her partner watched as she crouched near the ventilation unit and lifted the metal grate. Thin, nearly invisible strings slipped from her fingers, threading their way inside the ductwork. A second later, there was a soft metallic snap, and the vent opened from the inside. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 disappeared into the darkness above, leaving her partner alone with the flashing lights, the sealed doors, and the knowledge that if anything went wrong, she was the last line of defense. Inside the vents, 𝐼𝐻𝐬 crawled forward, careful not to let the panels rattle. The sounds of the store grew clearer, with voices rising through the heat in the vents, rough, impatient, and nervous. She paused above a junction and let her strings slip through the grates, brushing against shelves and tracing footsteps below. 3 villains were near the counter, and another was pacing by the registers. The hostages huddled toward the back, their fear palpable. One of the men laughed sharply, declaring that the cops never came in. 𝐼𝐻𝐬 smirked, tightening her grip on the strings, knowing they always forgot to look up. She crawled closer to the main vent, positioning herself directly above them, fingers flexing as her strings spread wider, ready to drop at the first mistake. As one of the thugs entered the back vault room, he waved impatiently at another, urging them to hurry before the heroes arrived. He turned to leave, but his words were cut short as something snapped tight around him. In an instant, he was yanked upward and bound against the ceiling, his limbs wrapped in glowing strings. The second thug stopped mid-sentence, confused about his partner's disappearance. A calm voice from above revealed 𝐼𝐸's presence, announcing her strings. Before the second thug could react, strings shot down and cocooned him, sealing his mouth shut as he was lifted off the floor. From the front of the store, another voice barked out, demanding urgency. The thugs stood near the counter, weapons trained on the trembling store owner, who was doing his best to comply. One thug ordered another to check on their missing partner, who had gone silent. Moments passed, and the second thug's muffled cries echoed through the store. The third thug turned to find his partner missing, panic rising in him. He spun around, grabbing the owner and dragging him close, a gun pressed to the man's head. But before he could shout, 𝐸 appeared behind him, silent as a shadow. With a swift motion, she struck his neck, and he collapsed instantly, hitting the floor as the strings loosened around the room. 𝐸 stepped forward, her strings tightening around her fingers, ready to finish the job. A nervous voice called out from the front, demanding to know where everyone was. 𝐸 tilted her head and smiled, teasing the thug as he raised his gun and fired. But the weapon never got the chance to discharge. Thin strings sliced through the air, rendering the gun useless before a single shot could land. Panicking, the thug grabbed his bag stuffed with money and jewelry and bolted for the exit. The moment he burst outside, 𝐾𝐞𝐭 slammed into him, driving him hard into the pavement. Police rushed forward to secure the thug as he struggled beneath her grip. Inside, 𝐸 watched through the shattered doorway, clearly amused, and tapped her communicator to announce mission completion. 𝐾𝐞𝐭 looked back at 𝐸, her eyes shining with admiration, praising her for her speed and efficiency. 𝐸 chuckled softly, the tension finally leaving her shoulders, and reassured 𝐾𝐞𝐭 that she had done well too. As officers finished securing the store and paramedics checked on the hostages, the flashing lights felt less harsh, more distant, as if the danger had already decided to stay behind. 𝐸 suggested they continue their patrol, and 𝐾𝐞𝐭 agreed. They moved on before anyone could stop them with questions, as 𝐸 preferred clean exits without lingering attention. The city slowly swallowed the chaos behind them, replacing sirens with footsteps, chatter, and the low hum of traffic. As they walked, 𝐾𝐞𝐭 felt lighter, not because of their success, but because she hadn't frozen in the moment. She took a few steps ahead of 𝐸, then spun on her heel, hopping over a crack in the sidewalk like it was a game. The street stretched long and open, bathed in warm afternoon light, with a clear sky and clouds drifting lazily, unaware of how close things had come to going wrong just minutes ago. 𝐸 followed behind, calm as ever, her parasol open above her shoulder despite the lack of rain. She always carried it, part weapon, part habit, part statement. The thin shadow it cast moved with her, steady and controlled. 𝐾𝐞𝐭 skipped forward again, then slowed, glancing back at 𝐸, who had taken down the thugs so quickly that she hadn't even realized the fight was over until she heard the police outside. 𝐸 explained that if the hostages didn't realize a fight had happened, they had done their job right. 𝐾𝐞𝐭 noted that 𝐸 didn't even look tired, to which 𝐸 replied that appearances were useful. 𝐾𝐞𝐭 laughed and jogged a few steps ahead again, then slowed so 𝐸 could catch up. Their patrol route curved through a commercial block settling into late afternoon calm, with the smell of coffee drifting from an open cafe door. As they passed a storefront window, they saw their reflections side by side. 𝐾𝐞𝐭's posture was loose and expressive, almost bouncing with energy. 𝐸 moved with precision and relaxation, her shoulders even and steps measured. 𝐾𝐞𝐭 slowed her pace to match 𝐸's instead of rushing ahead. She reflected on a moment of hesitation, recalling how she almost froze during the encounter. When 𝐸 inquired if it was when he ran, 𝐾𝐞𝐭 nodded, admitting that for just a second, she wondered what would happen if she messed up. As they crossed the street with the changing signal, cars rolled past, drivers impatient but indifferent. 𝐸 reassured 𝐾𝐞𝐭 that her pause wasn't a sign of weakness. 𝐾𝐞𝐭 looked up, absorbing 𝐸's words as she explained that it was a moment to assess the situation before acting. They turned onto a quieter street, lined with low apartment buildings and narrow balconies, where laundry fluttered in the breeze and a distant radio played softly. 𝐾𝐞𝐭 kicked a small stone forward, watching it bounce along the pavement, and expressed her amazement at how quickly 𝐸 had taken down their opponents. 𝐸 explained that speed reduces risk, and 𝐾𝐞𝐭 felt it was over in the blink of an eye. Nui smiled slightly, attributing her skill to years of practice. Kiriko paused, prompting Nui to stop as well. She asked if Nui ever felt scared, and Nui took a moment to consider before explaining that fear is merely information, something she doesn't allow to control her. Kiriko nodded, taking in the wisdom as they resumed walking. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the sidewalk, and the city felt softer and warmer. A stray cat observed them from a stoop, uninterested in their presence. Kiriko clasped her hands behind her back, rocking on her heels as she walked. She reflected on the hostages and what could have happened if they had been slower. Nui reassured her that they weren't, emphasizing the importance of training to prevent what-ifs from becoming realities. She acknowledged Kiriko's role in holding the perimeter and preventing escape, but Kiriko expressed a longing to do more. Nui reminded her that wanting more is fine, but recklessness is not. As they continued down the block, the street opened into a small park where sunlight filtered through the trees. Children played near a swing set, and a couple sat on a bench, sharing earphones and lost in their own world. Kiriko watched them quietly, realizing they were unaware of the dangers around them. Nui affirmed that they didn't need to know. As they walked past the park, Kiriko's earlier excitement transformed into calm awareness. She scanned the surroundings with a sharper focus, not out of anxiety but with a sense of vigilance. Nui noticed this change and commented on Kiriko's ability to observe without forcing it. Kiriko smiled, feeling a bit embarrassed and attributing her learning to Nui's influence. They reached the edge of their patrol sector and turned down another street, where there were no alarms or urgent calls, just the hum of the city. Kiriko broke the silence to thank Nui for trusting her outside, acknowledging that Nui could have handled the situation alone. Nui explained that trust is essential for developing judgment and that Kiriko had used it well. Kiriko's smile lingered as they walked side by side, the afternoon stretching ahead of them, another chance to protect something that might never know it needed protection. The parasol cast a steady shadow as Kiriko straightened her posture, feeling her energy return, not wild this time, but focused. Their patrol continued quietly and purposefully. Kiriko gently asked Nui about her eye patch, posing the question without teasing or prying. Nui stopped suddenly, causing Kiriko to take a few steps before realizing she was alone. Confusion crossed Kiriko's face as she turned back. Nui stood still, her fingers tightening around the parasol's handle as a memory surfaced uninvited, a mission that had gone wrong long before backup could arrive. Kiriko sensed the shift in Nui's demeanor and offered an apology, but Nui assured her it was fine. She explained that it wasn't an accident. She lost her eye when she was 4 years old, the same day she lost her father, 𝐼𝐮𝐻𝐿. The name carried weight and history. Nui recounted a villain attack that escalated quickly, recalling how her father had taken her hostage. She remembered the chaos, the shouting, the screaming, and the overwhelming noise. The villain had sought leverage, injuring her eye beyond repair. Nui's father had acted without hesitation, saving everyone else while she survived, but he did not. After a moment of silence, Nui steadied herself, explaining that she wore the eye patch not out of necessity but as a choice to remember the cost of protecting others. Kiriko expressed her sorrow, and Nui nodded, admitting she didn't share this story with many people. As they resumed walking, Kiriko's steps were slower and more careful, the weight of their conversation lingering. The patrol continued, quieter than before but unbroken. Kiriko took a moment to let the gravity of their discussion settle before making a promise to ensure no one would ever use Nui like that again. She turned fully toward Nui, her voice steady and resolute, expressing her longing to honor her father's sacrifice by being a hero who arrives in time. The city moved around them, unaware of the shift in their relationship, quiet, solid, and unspoken. Kiriko straightened, thanking Nui for trusting her with such a personal story, vowing never to forget it. Nui acknowledged Kiriko's promise with gratitude, and they continued their patrol, united in purpose.